and brother Varshan join me now. Thank you so much for joining me in these desperately sad circumstances. This is very important for other people who may find themselves in a similar position, that they will be able to make decisions about their own care with the support of their families, rather than the sometimes arrogance of the medical profession who think that they know best. So you must be, I hope, very reassured by this judgment that Sudiksha has achieved something for other people. Yes, definitely, because this arrogance transformed into cruelty towards my sister's care and ill treatment of the whole family. They think they are on the top of the hierarchical spectrum, and they treated us like we were on the bottom of the lower end of the chains, or rather as low class, but we ensured that our class remained.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Morning, 9:30 on Thursday the 15th of August, live across the UK. This is Britain's Newsroom with Andrew Pearce and Bev Turner.
So thousands of students are opening their A-level, T-level and BTEC results this morning in England, Wales and Northern Ireland as top grades are expected to be announced.
Across the country, tens of thousands of young people and older learners are learning their A-level results. And here in Lichfield, it's celebrations and commiserations.
82% of students achieving a place at university of those who applied. I've been in a clearing centre this morning as people call in getting places.
And finally, an end to the rail strikes. Well, maybe train drivers have been offered a 15% pay rise over 3 years, and the industrial action may now come to an end as the government given in to the unions.
And Swifties are uniting in London. Taylor Swift's tour resumes at Wembley today. It's her first show since the failed terror plot in Vienna. There'll be beefed up security measures in place.
And Sussex is on tour. Harry and Meghan are expected to arrive in Colombia today. We'll tell you everything about their schedule.
So those A-level results are arriving. In my day, the letter dropped on the doormat.
Yeah.
Don't think it's quite like that now, but we've got lots of people at clearing centres, so if you've got questions about your A-level results, you're a parent or a student, do send them in to us, because we can put them to our correspondents who are at the clearing centres. You visit gbnews.com/your say.
That's right, and a whole lot more this morning. Don't go anywhere. We're here with you until midday. Here's the news with Cameron.
It's 9:32. I'm Cameron Walker here in the GB Newsroom. Students across England, Wales and Northern Ireland are receiving their A-level, AS level and other results today. The total number of students accepted onto UK degree courses has risen by 3% this year on the same point last year, with over 425,000 taking up places so far, according to UCAS. But a one-off uplift to exam marks has not been granted to all pupils who had their education disrupted by the collapse risk concrete crisis, despite calls from schools and families affected. The economy is continuing its recovery from last year's recession, with growth extending over the latest quarter. The Office for National Statistics says gross domestic product increased by 0.6% between April and June. Former Conservative Chancellor Jeremy Hunt says today's figures are further proof Labour has inherited a growing and resilient economy. But Labour's Chancellor Rachel Reeves says she has inherited more than a decade of low economic growth from the Tories. Train drivers are to vote on a new offer aimed at ending their long-running pay dispute, which has resulted in days of strike action. The ASLEF union said the offer was made in talks at the Department for Transport, which started after Labour won the general election following months of stalemate under the Conservatives. The drivers are being recommended to accept the offer, which could bring an end to industrial action and overtime bans. Manchester Police has confirmed they have submitted a file to the Crown Prosecution Service for advice after 3 officers were injured in an incident at Manchester Airport last month. 4 men remain on police bail after a series of alleged assaults. Separately, 2 Greater Manchester police officers remain under criminal investigation for assault following the incident on the 23rd of July. Now, drivers are being urged to avoid scanning QR codes to pay for parking following a number of scams. The RAC is advising drivers to make payments only with cash, cards or official apps. Recently, fraudsters have been placing stickers featuring QR codes on parking signs in locations across the country, taking victims to fake websites to input their cards details. Criminals then spend money from their accounts. And global superstar Taylor Swift is closing the European leg of her Eras tour with 5 nights at London's Wembley Stadium. It's the first time she's returned to the UK since paying tribute to the victims of the Southport attack last month, which saw 3 young girls die after a mass stabbing dance class with her music as the theme. Earlier this month, Taylor Swift was forced to cancel 3 shows in Vienna after a suspected Islamist terror plot. Well, those are your latest GB News headlines for now. I'm Cameron Walker. More in half an hour.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Welcome to Britain's Newsroom, live across the UK on GB News with me, Bev Turner and Andrew Pearce. We're just talking about our A-level results. Thousands of teenagers are getting their results today.
Yeah, England Wales and Northern Ireland are getting them. I'd already started work. I'd started work on the Gloucestershire Echo, which was my first newspaper job in Cheltenham. And so, and I'd called some mates the day before, call box in those days, of course, no mobile phones, and I was in a bedsit, so no phone there. I was horrified to hear that some had got their results ready, and they were terrible.
Oh, really?
Bright kids had failed, so I thought, it's terrible. So I rang my mum and said,
don't get your hopes up.
So she called me. She went into work late, so she waited when the letter dropped on the doormat, and I can still remember the words. She said, I've got your A-level passes.
And what did you get?
I got 3 Cs.
In?
English, history and economics.
3 Cs. So I did English and economics.
And there was only one
A
in the whole school.
Really?
Yeah, only one.
See, they didn't used to just give it. It used to be quite hard to get A's. Now it just
really
feels
hard.
like really hard. I got 2 A's and a B.
Very good.
And a C in general studies. And in economics and English, my B was the economics, but the other 2 were the A's. And I then, to celebrate my freedom, I got in my yellow Austin Allegro and drove to Southport Beach and had fish and chips on the beach with my boyfriend.
And do you know,
Those are the day.
my dad probably put the rivets in welded the floor of that car, because he worked on the Austin Allegro at British Leyland in Swindon. He was a spot welder.
Loved my yellow Austin Allegro.
Not many people did. That was a car which was much lampooned.
Much derided, I know. Exactly. We want to hear from you this morning. If you have a young person, or maybe you are, as Will just said before, there are some adult learners who are getting A-level results this morning. Let us know your results. How difficult is it? How important are A-levels now? Do you need them to open the next door on your career journey? I'm not sure you do so much.
And if you haven't got the grade you expected, is there a question you want us to put? Because we've got people at some of the clearing centres, particularly in Cheltenham. We're also, of course, going to be speaking to the Higher Education Minister, Baroness Smith, Jackie Smith, later in the programme.
Yeah. So Will Hollis is at Lichfield Cathedral School. Good morning, Will. Will, I don't know whether you did A-levels, Will, but if you did, it was only about 5 minutes ago, let's be honest. What are your recollections of exam results day, and how's it going there in Lichfield?
Entirely. It was only a few minutes ago, I think. I pretty much walked from getting my A-level results and then jumped in front of the television. It is a stressful time, isn't it? It's an exciting time. There's celebration and there's commiserations, and it seems that there's a lot of celebration here at Lichfield Cathedral School. We're only a stone's throw away from the cathedral, and we're in the fantastic courtyard right now with Harry and Yeva. And Harry, how have you done this morning as you get your A-level results?
I've done what I expected I would do. I've done nothing more, but I've done nothing less. I've got exactly what I needed to get into my university.
Really positive today. What's this experience been like, and did you have any sleep last night?
I did sleep last night. Ironically, I think I was one of the only people that did actually sleep last night. But I found this whole experience to be amazing in every way. I've met some amazing people through my course. and also through the teachers of this school. I can't thank them enough, especially my music tech teacher. He's just been absolutely sensational, and he's driven me to do exactly what it is I want to do in the future.
You said you got what you needed. What is it you needed to be able to go on and do?
So I needed a BBC to get through to the university that I want to go to, and I got ABC.
Fantastic. And then what is the university, if you don't mind saying, and where are you going, or what are you going to be doing?
So the university I'm going to is Birmingham City, and I'm hoping to go do sound engineering. And with my results today, I will be, thank goodness.
Well, we hope that this sounds great. If not, then you can give me a few pointers. But Yeva, just describe for me a little bit about your story, because you're originally from Ukraine and you've come here to study.
Yeah, definitely. It's been quite an interesting journey, I'm going to be honest with you. It's been really difficult to get used to a completely different system of education, completely different mentality of people. It's been quite hard, but to be honest, I was so driven by the thought of the fact that I am going to achieve my dream in a way. So despite the fact that it's been quite difficult, but I'm forever grateful for everyone I've met here and all the support the school has provided to me, because I don't actually think I'd be able to fully do it myself without their support.
And how have you done this morning? What are your grades like, and what do you hope to do next?
I'm really happy with my grades. I've got what I needed for university. I haven't got into my firm choice. I've got in my insurance choice, but it's Nottingham University, and I'm extremely happy. I was really nervous. I didn't get any sleep, like Harry did. I was extremely nervous, but I did not see myself going into clearing, since I was really confident with how I did. I did get a bit of a lower grades than I expected. However, they're really good for me to be able to go and carry on achieving my dream.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And it was a tough time, particularly because you'd come from another school. What was it like doing A-levels and this period? Was it a bit of happiness, a bit of enjoyment, a bit of stress?
You see, because it's a completely different system of education, I was so overwhelmed for like half a year in year 12, and I did not see where I'm going, what am I doing. But then I kind of decided that I know what I want to do, I need to just go for it. And it's been really stressful, since I had moments when I felt like I'm giving up, but I had a dream and I was just going for it. And now I'm looking back at it and I'm thinking it was an amazing time, since I had my amazing friends like supporting me throughout and always been so nice to me, that I kind of think they made this experience better for me.
Yeva and Harry, thank you so much for sharing your time when you reasonably should be hugging your friends and maybe heading off to the pub.
It's amazing. Honestly, you did amazing.
It's a day quite like any other. I feel like I'm back doing my A-levels again, but that was a little bit of time ago now, Bev and Andrew.
Not that long ago, Will Hollis. You didn't tell us exactly how many years ago you did your A-levels. Oh, and by the way, that guy there who said he wants to be a sound engineer, we're always looking for them. We'll give him a job when he's finished his degree. Yeah, pass that on. Right, Jack Carson is at Coventry University this morning. Jack, what's going on there?
Well, just hopped out of the clearing room where those phone lines are ringing off the hook, because, of course, clearing, for those that don't know, if you have applied for university, you've maybe not got the results that you wanted, you can call a clearing hotline at any university that is offering them across the country, talk to them about what grades you've got, what places might be on offer. A lot of the time as well, it's not the negative that people think it is. A lot of the time people maybe think, oh, I've got better results than what I wanted, so a choice, a university that I didn't think might be an option for me suddenly becomes an option. You can call that university, talk to academics, talk to the hotline about your results, about what might be an option for you. And there are a lot of people that might well be in that boat this morning. 82% of students getting into their first choice, more than 400,000 getting a place at university this year. They are both up on last year as well. And interesting, a record number of pupils that are classed from being from disadvantaged backgrounds also getting a university spot. That's a record. The last record was in 2021, where around 26,500 students got from disadvantaged backgrounds got a place. It's now this year 27,600 according to UCAS. So that's much more positive news. But for those people right now that have opened their results, not knowing what to do, we've got some tips, we've got some help, we've got some advice for you. We spoke to Ian Dunn, Professor Ian Dunn, who's the provost here at Coventry University. Here's what he told us.
Undoubtedly, people are nervous because the pressure that's applied is so great. First of all, my advice would be to stay calm, to take a moment, perhaps have a cup of tea and have a chat with your friends and family. There will be places, and there are places available, and they won't all disappear in the first hour or so of clearing, so you don't have to be completely sort of right now. Do some research, get online, look at the university web pages.
Yeah, so there's the advice there from Ian Dunn, who's the provost here at Coventry University. The important message to remember is that your life does not end at 18 opening these results, it starts, and there are plenty of options for students looking for them today.
All right, that's Jack Carson in Coventry. And don't forget, if you have got questions, if you are a student, you haven't got quite the results you wanted, you're a parent, do send them in, because we've got those people at those clearing centres that can get those questions.
Yeah, let us know. A-levels and also, of course, T-levels and B-Techs, of course, results today. So good luck to everybody. Now, up next, are Labour shrewd negotiators, or are they giving in to the unions as predicted? It looks like they may have finally reached a pay deal with striking train drivers, but at what cost? With Britain's Newsroom on GB News.
If you want your news to be straight talking...
This is a nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Michael Portillo. This is GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
You'll relate to this one. We've all been there, haven't we? Tensions high in the car as you head off on the latest adventure or holiday during the summer break.
Now, with the average family set to spend about 3.5 hours a week together in the car driving on the roads during the holidays, new research has shown that our relationships could be tested to the limit.
Yes, figures show that 21% are having arguments for simple things like the driver going the wrong way, which we were saying is not actually very simple. That's very serious.
I was going to say that. I'm surprised it's just 21%.
Yeah.
So if I was going the wrong way down the road,
you'd know about
you'd
it.
hear from me.
A further 20% squabbling over how their partner drives, yes, and 25% admitting to being more prone to rowing when their kids are misbehaving. It's a lot to deal with, isn't it?
Fair enough.
Well, we're joined now by dating and relationship coach and author Persia Lawson. Good to see you this morning, Persia. What is it about being in a car that just makes things so tense?
Well, I think it's probably quite obvious, isn't it? It's the fact that we are in a confined space, we can't go anywhere, and it can just really create so much tension and stress, especially if you and your other half or a family member, whoever you're in the car with, are going through a little bit of a tricky time. And if it's really hot outside, that doesn't help either. So inevitably, it creates a lot of irritation and bickering, I would say, from my experience.
And what is it about children? If you add children into the mix, it just makes things very, very difficult, doesn't it?
Well, yeah, because there's a lot of, are we there yet?
Yeah.
Kicking the back seat and just squabbles, kicking the siblings. So adding children into the mix is just going to turn the heat up on that tension.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
It's true. You're not wrong. No one will be cancelled. Lovely.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Neil Oliver, every Sunday night at 6 p.m. on GB News. And if an hour is not nearly enough for you, go to gbnews.com for special extended episodes online every Friday at 9 p.m, where we can truly get into the nitty-gritty of what's going on. GB News, Britain's news channel.
9:47, this is Britain's Newsroom on GB News. Political commentator Matt Stadlen is with us. And we were just talking about, off-air, about being at the Edinburgh Festival. And of course, you were there as well, weren't you?
I was, yeah.
And you were interviewing a whole host of politicians, including Liz Truss. And obviously, we've had this week the Liz Truss, another lettuce descending from the sky when she's talking in a theatre. And she just said, this isn't funny. I think we've got the footage of it, but she said, this isn't funny, and she walks off. How did you find her?
Well, first of all, I think security told me afterwards they'd had to confiscate a lettuce from people going in.
What, in Edinburgh?
In Edinburgh.
No.
Yeah, someone's... I hope not to.
What, were they going to throw it
well,
off stage,
I just certainly hope not. I found it an electric experience because there are about 350 people in the room, and whatever you think of Liz Truss...
She gets a good crowd.
She did, then. Whatever you think of Liz Truss, and I'm not a fan of her politics, I'm not a fan of what she did as Prime Minister, she is a former British Prime Minister, even though she was only there for 49 days, and therefore I personally think she is still worth listening to, and also, you know, worthy of respect. We're all worthy of respect and politeness. So I had to steer this sort of odd line between being polite to her, but also pointing out at times that a lot of people felt she was living in a parallel universe. And it made for an extraordinary atmosphere, because most people, I think, in the room were hostile to her, not aggressive, right, but hostile to her. Yeah. And the laughter came from the things that I said to hold her to account. And I've done about 400 live events, and I've never been in a room where the audience is laughing at my guest.
That's such a good point, because if you were listening on the radio then, we've just shown the footage, that wasn't the event you were at, Matt, that was the one this weekend.
That was in Norfolk.
Thank you. And the screen comes down on the stage and it says, "I crashed the economy," and it's a lettuce with Liz Truss' eyes on it. And I don't want to be one, you know, I'm no poker face. I think we need to be able to laugh at things. But there's something about the way that she is targeted that makes me really uncomfortable. And I sort of want to reach for the chauvinism word. I can't imagine a male politician that would be treated with such derision and, like you say, laughed at.
And we should remember, it was because the lettuce was the Daily Star early on in her premiership.
Correct.
Said, what's going to last longer, this battered old lettuce or her premiership?
No, I think
the lettuce lasted longer. So the joke's haunting her.
I think there probably is sexism, and I would obviously condemn that. And I also think that she is being targeted in a way that would probably be unacceptable if she was still Prime Minister, but is certainly unacceptable, in my view, given that she is now a private citizen.
She's no longer an MP now.
She's not even an MP because she was booted out by her constituents. Yeah. So I actually didn't think it was funny, this gag, and it was led by donkeys, who I think did a pretty good job of holding the Conservative government to account when they were in power. But Liz Truss is no longer in power. The Tories are no longer in power. So perhaps an organisation, an outfit like led by donkeys, they're sort of wondering what to do.
Well, they say it's because she's supporting Trump.
They do. But also, do you think she walked off the stage and she said that was security?
Missed opportunity.
I think she should have stuck it out.
Missed opportunity. The only possible explanation for that, in her defence, would be a security issue.
Well, that's what she's...
Because don't forget, when I'm interviewing her, because she's a former Prime Minister, there are about 5 special branch in the room.
Constantly with
and rightly so. I mean, a lot of people whose mortgages have gone up, and there's a big debate as to what extent she affected people's mortgages, but they're very angry because she's getting an enormous amount of taxpayers' money for the rest of her life, not least in her defence.
But she should have stuck it out on that stage. And
I think it was a missed opportunity because she could have joked about it, made light of it, engaged with it. I think of Trump.
But she said but she said this isn't funny.
I don't blame her. She must be so tired of it. Imagine imagine having Liz Truss round for dinner. You're deciding what to... Don't get any lettuce. Just don't mention the lettuce.
I've got no time for Donald Trump, but he would have handled that very differently. He would have negotiated with it. He'd have taken it head on.
Yes, he would.
And she didn't seem to be able to do it.
She looks exhausted by it.
Quick. She's got to think quicker on her feet. Look, we got you here, actually, Matt, as well, to talk about the railway workers. As if they've got a 15% pay rise over 3 years. Part of it's backdated. The junior doctors, 22% rise over 2 years. Caving into the unions, aren't they, already?
Well, I know that's what you would say, and as you might imagine, I've come expecting that line of defence from you, Andrew. I'd just say a couple of things. If you talk to the millions of people who use our trains every day, who need our trains to get to work or to go to funerals or weddings, whatever it is they do, they'll be delighted at this outcome.
Will they?
There will be some who are concerned about how it's going to be paid for.
That was the next point.
Of course it is.
Is it going to go up in higher fares?
And my answer to that is just think of the damage to our economy over the last 2 years by the strikes under the Conservative government. What this Labour government seems to be doing is to be determined to treat people in the public sector, as well, of course, as the private sector, with respect, with a degree, let's use the word of humanity, and actually get things moving forward. And, of course, the government isn't going to get everything it wants, because that's not how negotiations work. But I suspect in the long run, doing a deal with these guys is going to make our economy stronger, not weaker.
Their basic pay will go up to about £70,000 in 3 years. Bus drivers
get a lot of money.
Yeah, bus drivers get about 25,000. Are they going to go on strike next?
Well, we'll have to wait to see.
It's a big job, an important job, isn't it?
We hope not. But the alternative is, if Labour hadn't come to a deal, is that people using trains up and down the country. I think there were about 1.3 billion train journeys last year in this country. They would continue to suffer, and as a consequence, the economy suffers.
Interestingly, though, the economy is doing really well. Andrew and I were commenting this morning, and we constantly seem to be baffled, you and I, don't we, Andrew, about calling the election so early, when it feels like there is a lot of good news every day. Even on our A-levels day, of what Jack Carson was saying then about the record number of kids from disadvantaged backgrounds. Tories could have claimed credit for that.
They absolutely could claim credit for it. They are starting to claim credit for it as well.
Nobody's listening.
Former ministers quote tweeting or quote posting the Chancellor Rachel Reeves saying you've inherited a very strong economy equivalent of.
Yeah.
Got to let you go,
Thank
Matthew.
you, Matt.
Coming up, we're going to be talking to the Education Minister, Baroness Jackie Smith. This is Britain's Newsroom on GB News.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Morning. Welcome to your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News. Something of a north-south split today. Lots of cloud across the north, outbreaks of rain this morning, whereas much of the south staying dry until tonight. In fact, a much brighter day on the south coast compared to yesterday. But it's dull and damp for much of Scotland and Northern Ireland this morning. That rain is trickling into northwest England and North Wales and will continue to spread southwards towards the Midlands by the end of the afternoon. At the same time, it does start to clear from the far northwest. Yes, we'll see increasing cloud further south, but we should see some decent spells of sunshine, 25, 26 degrees. In this rainier zone, though, it's also going to be quite windy, particularly for North Wales, northwest England, southwest Scotland. By the time we get to this evening's rush hour, the rain should be pulling away from most of Scotland. Some sunny spells over the Highlands, but still one or two showers. Could still be quite grey on the east coast at this stage and potentially through the central belt, although the rain will be heading away by 5 or 6 o'clock. Should be clearing from Northern Ireland by then as well, so for many here a fine evening. Still quite blustery over Wales and northwest England with outbreaks of rain, just spreading down towards the southwest, whereas East Anglia in the southeast should stay dry well into the evening. It's not really until later on we start to see that rain spreading across East Anglia and then the southeast of England. One or two heavy bursts as it clears through. For many, it'll turn clearer and cooler, with temperatures down to single figures in rural parts of Scotland and Northern Ireland. Still quite warm and humid across East Anglia and the southeast. Any early rain should scoot away tomorrow morning, but there is the potential the warmth and humidity may linger across the southeast, which could give some afternoon showers. Certainly looking at some showers across the northwest of Scotland. For many, tomorrow's a decent looking day. Dry and bright. A fresher feel as well, and temperatures close to the average for the time of year, generally high teens across the north, low to mid-20s further south.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
The latest GB News travel.
Good morning, I'm Russell Holding. On the M8 in Glasgow, the inside lane is closed eastbound where a bus has broken down on Kingston Bridge between junctions 20 and 19 from the M74 to Anderston Cross. There are queues towards there beyond junction 22 for the M77 at Plantation. In Surrey, the A324 is closed in both directions along Lockfield Drive off the A320 Victoria Way in Woking after an accident. The air ambulance at the scene. On the M26 in Kent, it's taking around 10 minutes in westbound queues approaching the M25 because of lane closures for roadworks, and Sky bus flights and Penzance helicopter flights to and from the Isles of Scilly are both currently on hold, and that's because of poor visibility. That's the latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website gbnews.com.
Celebrate a spectacular summer with your chance to win an incredible £30,000 in tax-free cash in our Great British Giveaway. It's the biggest prize of the year so far, and it's totally tax-free. What would you spend that on? Luxury holidays, a new car, or just put it away for a rainy day? Whatever you do with £30,000 in tax-free cash, make sure you don't miss out on a chance to make it yours. For another chance to win £30,000 in tax tax-free cash, text cash to 63232. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. You can enter online at gbnews.com/win. Entries cost £2 or post your name and number to GB07 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on the 30th of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent? I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Patrick Christie's. Every weeknight from 9, I bring you 2 hours of unmissable, explosive debate and headline-grabbing interviews. What impact has that had?
We got death threats and the bomb threats on.
As time passes, she could have said storm. You made my argument for me. My guest and I tackle the issues that really matter with a sharp take on every story.
Went everywhere.
Something practical could be done. Or I can become something different. Patrick Christie's tonight from 9 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Very good morning to you. It's A-level results day, T-levels as well, of course, and BTECs. Thousands of teenagers receiving their grades across England, Wales and Northern Ireland.
Well, joining us now is Baroness Jackie Smith. She's the Minister of State for Skills, Apprenticeships and Higher Education. Good morning to you, Baroness Smith. The results, the grades are up. Pretty good.
It's a really good news for lots and lots of students today, Andrew, and massive congratulations to them. We're seeing more offers being made at universities, so more students being able to get their first choice. So well done to them. It's been a difficult few years that they've been studying in, and well done to their teachers who've helped to get them this far.
Now, when they get to university, Jackie, are they going to be able to engage in free speech and have debates which might be controversial? Because there are a lot of parents whose kids are going off to university who are concerned that universities have just become a place for a kind of ideological brainwashing and that anything that deviates from a very small Overton window of what's acceptable to talk about is ruled out. Can you guarantee people that our universities will still be free speech bastions?
Look, universities are the places where we learn to think critically, where we argue, where we hear things that we disagree with. It's absolutely fundamental that universities continue to do that. It's something that, we feel really strongly about. It's something that I benefited from at university, and I'm absolutely certain that future students will benefit from it, and the staff that are teaching them as well.
But your boss, Bridget Phillipson, the Secretary of State, Baroness Smith, has dropped the Free Speech Act, which was about to be implemented. She says she wants to protect students from harms and potentially hate speeches. Are we getting into dark waters here?
No, I don't think we are, Andrew. Look, there is already in law a protection, a responsibility on universities to protect free speech. The problem with the legislation that was being proposed was, of course, it came from a place of that I agree with, of wanting to defend that freedom of speech for students, for visitors to universities, for academics. But what people told us, both universities and student unions and others, was, look, it's not going to work as it was intended. If you're not careful, you're going to get swamped with complaints about free speech when actually there are lots of other things that students and universities need to worry about as well. So, just to be clear, as I was at the beginning, free speech in universities is fundamental. You don't go to university only to hear things you agree with or that you feel comfortable with. You go there to be challenged, and that has to remain in place. But we need to make sure that that's, if you like, organised and delivered in a way that doesn't have unintended consequences, which was the potential problem with this legislation. So what we've done is we've said it was due to come in on the 1st of August. We've stopped that in order that we can think about whether or not this legislation or another way is the best way of safeguarding free speech.
Great news that so many youngsters are going to go to university, Jackie, although last year the number fell for the first time in 5 years. I suspect that's because of the amount of debt students may leave. But also, we've seen an increase in the number of young people between 16 to 24, we call them NEETs, not in education, employment or training, now estimated at 900,000. What can you do about that?
Yeah, there are too many young people. You know, just as we're celebrating people that are going to university today, there are too who have those opportunities at the age of 16 or 18. So the first thing to say is university isn't the only option open to you. It may be that you think, actually, I want to learn and work at the same time. So perhaps an apprenticeship is a better option for you. And last August, there were 33,000 apprenticeship options available on our one-stop shop for apprenticeships. So perhaps take a look at that. But for students who've fallen behind and who now really don't have anything in terms of employment or education, well, we need to do much more than has been done previously for them. That's why we're thinking about how we deliver our youth guarantee so that all young people have the opportunity of studying or of work or an appropriate type of course that they could be doing or apprenticeship.
What does that look like, the youth guarantee in practicality? I have 3 teens in my house. Like, if one of them was at a bit of a loose end, where do they go?
So we're still working up all of the details. But for example, if your son or daughter was somebody who wanted to go to university, then obviously there's a lot of advice from their schools and from UCAS about how to do that. If they wanted to look at an apprenticeship, we've got the government's one-stop apprenticeship shop website that they can go to look for that. It may be that they need better careers advice. That's something else that we're committed to improving during the course of this government. So there are already a whole range of options, but we need to do better to make sure that whatever route you decide you want to take in life as a young person, you've got both the information about what those options are and you've got high quality options out there to help you as well.
Is it right, Baroness Smith, that so many of these youngsters, when they leave university, they're saddled with pretty eye-watering levels of debt? The average, I'm told, last year was £46,000. It could take them years to pay that off. Some people never will pay it off. And I suspect, is that not a reason why, perhaps, last year, the number of applications to university actually fell?
Well, first of all, it's a good thing that there are more applications this year, Andrew.
Yeah.
I think there are unfairnesses in the student finance system at the moment. It isn't really doing what it should be doing for students, and it isn't doing what it needs to do for universities in terms of stability of funding either. So that's why we're looking at how we can reform that. You know, only a relatively short period of time into the government, but it's something we have committed to do, and we will come forward with proposals on that. But I will say about going to university, on average, people, if you go to university and you get a degree, that's probably worth, on average, about £100,000 during the course of your life. So it is a very, very good option. And we've got universities that are the best in the world. You know, 4 of the top 10 universities in the world are in the UK. 15 of the top 100 are in the UK. This is an enormous asset for us as a country. And rather than, as the last government tended to do, using universities as a bit of a political football, let's improve them, of course. Let's make sure that they're financially sustainable, but let's encourage our students to realise what an enormous opportunity there can be if you go to university.
How would you describe, Baroness Smith, the relationship between this government and the trade unions? Because obviously we're seeing now there might be a reconciliation for the train drivers. We've had the doctors as well. Does it mean they've basically got the Labour Party over a barrel and what they asked for, they will just get paid?
No, it doesn't. How would I describe the relationship? I'd say whether or not it's business or trade unions, we're interested in a partnership. We're not interested in scoring political points whilst our teachers, for example, were thinking about striking. So we were able to fund the school teachers review body recommendation for a pay increase. We've managed to end the strikes that were happening in the NHS, and we're making it even more difficult for the NHS to improve and for people to get their appointments. And we've come to an agreement with the trade unions that means that people won't be stranded stranded at home and the economy won't be suffering with train strikes continuing. So this is a partnership to make sure that we're able to get to work, we're able to get the public services that we need.
Oh, I think we've lost her.
I think we've lost her right at the end. That was Baroness Smith, the Minister of State for Skills, Apprenticeships and Higher Education. Of course, she was the first woman Home Secretary in this country under Gordon Brown.
And, of course, just to be clear, she wasn't voted in as an MP.
No.
She was...
parachuted into the Lords by Keir Starmer in his first reshuffle.
Don't know about that.
Well, it's what they do.
I like experienced women in government, don't get me wrong, but, you know, I don't know.
And she has been around the block, so she knows a few things.
She's still listening. That's a bit of an insult. You've been around the block.
No, I've known her a long
so
time.
You.
Jack and I, we go back a long way. Now, the government is giving £13.5 million to Tata Steel to support supply chain business and workers affected by the company's decision to transition to greener steel making.
So let's cross live to Port Talbot and speak to our political correspondent, Olivia Otley. Olivia, you could hear the groan in Andrew Pearce's voice then about this being greener steel making. What does that mean for Tata?
Jobs.
Well, that's a very good question. So last September, Tata Steel closed its 2 furnace plants to replace them with an electric plant, which put over 2,000 jobs at risk in this town. The whole town is dominated by the steelworks industry here. Now, the Conservative government, the previous Conservative government, set aside £5 million for the transition, but £100 million of which was there to support workers and other people, businesses who were affected by this closure. But that was last September, and since then, none of that money has really been spent. That comes to an end today, where Joe Stevens, the new Labour Wealth Secretary, is pledging to spend, is now spending £13.5 million of that money to help out people who are going to be affected by the closures. But there are still negotiations taking place. Labour is hopeful that it will be possible not to have quite as many redundancies as Tata Steel were originally talking about. Now, I'm here with Alan Davies, who is from the Community Union, which represents most steel workers in the UK. Alan, are you happy with the deal that the government is reaching?
I think at the moment this is the biggest step forward we've seen from the transition board since it started. The unions were considering it to be a talking shop. Nothing was happening. So Joe Stevens announcing that 13.5 billion is the first tranche of money coming out is significant today.
Do you think that Tata Steel should be making as many redundancies as it is making? Do they have any choice, really?
We gave them a choice. We've said that from day one. We came up with an alternative plan. Unfortunately, it was not cost efficient for them in the short term, but ultimately that would have saved over half of those jobs. So we're still fighting to save the jobs. That is our key priority at the moment, but we'll do whatever we can at the moment. But our main focus is making sure that people who are affected are supported in the right manner.
2,000 jobs potentially on the line, and then of course the huge wider impact both in this local community, this town, and in the wider industry. Is it all worth it for the sake of making this plant a bit greener?
We have to go green. We've said that from the start. What we're saying is that electric arc is not the only way forward. There are other methods they could use which would protect jobs. There are investments that they could put in to save jobs, so they could start building those plants, like an electrical steels plant, a plate mill. There's investment in the Lamworm to mitigate the job losses down there. All that could be done, but it takes money, and it takes a significant amount of money. So at the moment, Tata is saying if they get the 500 million from the government, that's 1.25 billion in total, which will only look really after most of the part of Port Talbot and a little bit in Lamworm. But there are significant job losses, and in the short term, we're looking to look after those people.
Do you think that the Labour government has a better chance of fixing this problem than the Conservative government that went before it?
I think the Conservative government done a deal behind closed doors, and it was a cheap deal for steel, which is not good for anybody. What we have seen is that Johnny Reynolds in London, in Westminster, has made significant steps and been quite forceful with Tata, saying that if the deal stays as it is, you won't be getting any taxpayers' money. So you have to put a different deal on the table. We've seen a difference then from Tata, when we've been in the discussions around the Memorandum of Understanding and what we can do to safeguard the jobs for the future.
There's this handout today of 13.5 million, and there's another there's 100 million altogether from this fund. Can the government afford to just keep on sort of giving handouts like this? Are you sure it wouldn't be better just to keep the plant more similar to how it was in the first place and not risk those jobs in the first place?
We shouldn't be risking the jobs in the first place. I totally agree with what you're saying there. But the 100 million, which is from the transition board, 20 million of it is from Tata, right? So they're trying to put things in place to try and mitigate the job losses. However, what we have to focus on are the people and making sure the plant stays as it is. But we have to go green. We have to.
Thank you very much. And therein lies the problem. 2,000 jobs at risk. But even the man from the union, even the man who wants to protect these jobs, says that we have to go green. This is going to be a huge problem for the Labour government, not just this week or in the few months ahead, but probably for their whole term in office.
Thank you, Olivia. Olivia Otley there. You've been getting...
It's going to be a big problem for everybody watching and listening, because it's going to be higher electric bills, higher gas bills, because of their mad dash to get to net zero.
Yeah.
And this government is obsessed by it, much more than the last one.
Well, every government around the world... Well, no, not true. Not every Western government around the world is obsessed with it.
Ed Miliband, who's the climate change secretary, he's run out the starting was like a 400-metre sprinter.
Don't
Incredible.
even get me started. Richard has got in touch and said universities, for most degrees, specialise in psychobabble to fool the masses. Listen to Jackie Smith and most politicians. Stuart has said apprenticeships are just a new way of getting slave labour. Look at the pay they get. They and a few are employed after completion. The YTS was there in the 80s. Each government just calls it something else. Do you know...
Apprenticeships are a good thing.
I think apprenticeships...
And when I was leaving school, lots of people gave up school at 16 and did an apprenticeship. My brother did an apprenticeship at British Rail. He's never been out of work.
I think this new sort of type of apprenticeship where you get paid really quite well to be training and getting a degree on the job whilst getting paid, for some kids in particular, it sounds a bit sexist, but for boys, they are really good, because often the boys they can't, you know, they go to uni, the girls go to uni and they have all their colour-coded files and they're all brilliantly motivated and they take all their notes and they're marvellously self-propelling. Sometimes teenage lads need a little bit of a kick on the backside.
But I mean, if you got an apprenticeship with a company like Rover or Jaguar, you're made for life.
Yeah. They're
really important.
And we need tradespeople.
We do. Engineers.
More than anything. In fact, we're going to be talking to...
Charlie Mullins.
Thank you.
He left school at 16, set up his own company.
Exactly.
He had a bag of tools, didn't he?
Yeah.
And he's now worth millions.
We're going to be talking to him a little bit later, actually, about his route. If you are one of those people who's got a teenager or a young person who's been waiting for exam results, then hear what Charlie has to say, because he's a gazillionaire now, isn't he?
He certainly is, yeah.
Apart from a few degrees, says Richard, the universities are conditioning machines that turn out people who are akin to brain-dead zombies. And we were kind of pressing Baroness Smith on that, weren't we? Are you going to allow free speech? And she said, I believe in free speech and freedom of debate. Well, we'll hold her to it.
Because, as we know, in a number of our universities, people have been cancelled.
Yeah.
Particularly over the trans issue.
And what's going on this weekend, seeing some of the headlines of the people who are being arrested and imprisoned for things that they've said on social media are chilling.
There's an extraordinary story on the front of the Telegraph today, how many people who are multiple offenders have never been sent to prison, and yet yesterday one was sentenced to prison for 15 months for saying on social media, burn down the mosque with people in it.
Yeah.
Now, stupid, wicked, terrible thing to say. 15 months in prison?
Yeah. She was on Facebook. She's a full-time carer for her husband.
Yeah.
She's 55 years old.
No criminal record.
And she said, I was really angry. It was off the back of the Southport stabbings, which we know had nothing to do with an Islamic refugee. However, she just said in a moment of anger, she wrote a line on Facebook to a group of 5,000 of her followers, and she said, just burn the mosque with all the people in it. It's, of course, that is, you would say, inciting violence. The law certainly thought it was.
Yeah.
And she deleted it quite quickly. 15 months.
15 months in prison.
In prison.
And she'll do at least 7.5 months, and our prisons are full up already.
Is she a threat to the public?
Is the justice system doing the right thing when repeat offenders, extraordinary...
That's right.
Some of them who've committed 100 offences in the last 15, 20 years have never been to prison.
Yeah. Well, this is Keir Starmer clamping down, isn't it, on thought on language, on tweeting, on social media as well. Just follow what the government tells you to do. Don't think outside the box. We will tell you how to think.
And so many people now who would be normally on social media are going to be much more guarded about what they say.
It's already happening.
And that's what they want.
And do you know what is already happening to people who would consider themselves to be politically right-wing? Keir Starmer has silenced the political right on social media.
Not me.
In the last week.
I'm carrying on.
Well, you better be careful. I'm serious. Some of the stuff that you tweet might literally get you in prison.
Twice on social media last week I was trending. And something that I put out on social media was taken down by social media. It's
just really chilling because, you know what, and in a way, I don't want you to get imprisoned. I promise. But... no, I don't.
Would you come and visit?
Some days. But as soon as he starts locking up journalists, that's when he'll be in trouble. He can't go for very high-profile people. If you and I end up in prison for something we say on Twitter, there would be much more public outcry, or, you know, any other influencer. But if he goes for the housewives, like that woman, or the full-time carers who say something in anger, he'll throw her in prison for 15 months because it doesn't cause protests on the street. Well, one day I feel like I'm going to come on here and say, come for us, come on. Right.
Come for you.
Glad I got that off my chest. Shall we move on?
Yeah. You're with Britain's Newsroom on GB News.
Sunday with Michael Portillo from 11, only on GB News.
John Steinbeck once said of his 1939 novel The Grapes of Wrath that he intended to rip a reader's nerves to rags. Well, GB News sent its famously delicate Stephen Kyriazis to see an adaptation of the work in a London theatre, and somehow he's made it into the studio today. Give people a tiny background about The Grapes of Wrath. It's about the Depression, isn't it?
Yes, it's the Great Plains, which were absolutely ravaged by droughts. They'd completely overfarmed the topsoil, so they had all these huge dust storms, and basically the farms were worthless. So they reckon in the 1930s, about 3.5 million people left this huge central agrarian area of America. And this is a very poor, white working region. Often, many of them headed for the coast to California to this dream of orange groves, white houses, plentiful work. And we focus in on the Joad family. Very poor, very working class. Tom Joad has just got out of prison for homicide in self-defence, and he's played by one of the Treadaways, Luke Treadaway, who I confused with his twin Harry.
Understandably.
They are identical. And so they pack everything into this kind of old-fashioned jalopy. It's a bit like Beverly Hillbillies, but not humorous. And I think there's about 13 people crammed, hanging off the sides, and they embark on this odyssey across the country. So there's all these huge themes about migration, about prejudice. They are viewed as an underclass by other Americans. So although they're migrants, they're not quite immigrants, but they're treated very poorly as almost subhuman. When they get there, the dream turns out to be false, the pay is terrible, and then very often when they take the job the next day, the pay is halved. It's a terrible life.
It's a very angry novel.
It's an angry, dark novel.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Join me, Neil Oliver, every Sunday night at 6 p.m. on GB News. And if an hour is not nearly enough for you, go to gbnews.com for special extended episodes online every Friday at 9 p.m, where we can truly get into the nitty-gritty of what's going on. GB News, Britain's news channel.
Every Saturday, 10 till 12, we'll bring you all of the news that you need to know. We'll also remind you that there is so much to smile about.
It's my favourite time of the week. I get to relax, enjoy some light-hearted stories, and let Ellie teach me about fashion too.
That's Saturday Morning Live, every Saturday, 10 till 12.
Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
Not saying it should. Right. Oh, there's a lot to talk about. Carol Malone's here. Jonathan List's also with us this morning. Right, where do you want to start, guys? There's so much to talk about. Carol.
We just thought we'd talk about Labour's caving in to the train drivers.
I'm glad that we've established a neutral frame.
Well, exactly. You know, they've been in like
and the junior doctors.
Well, them as well. But this is the second lot.
Yeah.
So train drivers who we know are already on very high wages. They're on an average of 62 grand a year. They've now been given a 14% pay rise over the next 3 years, which is going to push their wages up to 70 grand a year. Now that's
before overtime.
Before overtime. So that's going to get them 100 grand a year. Generally, for a 4-day week. Now, the Tories' deal was that we're not going to give them 15%, but the Tories also said they had to compulsorily work Sundays. This new deal means they don't have to work any weekends at all.
No strings attached.
No strings attached. And also, I was in a cab this week, and a cab company has a contract with the train drivers. So when they finish their shift in London, in Paddington, whatever they finish, and there's no trains home, they get a cab paid for wherever. Cabs fares are 200, 250 quid to get them home, and then they come back the next day in the same thing. Now, to me, this is just outrageous. I think ordinary people sitting at home who are earning, you know, working their socks off to earn a decent wage will read about this, and they read about Labour. You know, this is happening in the same period of time as Rachel Roof has just announced they're going to take the winter fuel allowance away from pensioners, and these people on a 4-day week, we don't even need train drivers anymore. They could all be automatic.
What do you mean?
Well, because they could all be automatic if they wanted to be, but they'll never bring them in. So,
of course we need train drivers.
So you know, and Whelan, it really annoyed me today. He's saying, you know, this is
the ASLEF General Secretary.
The ASLEF General Secretary. He said today, you know, after 2 years of being treated with utter contempt by the Tories, we're now being listened to. Yeah, you know, you've been listened to by, you know, they're the paymasters of the Labour Party. So, you know, it is just outrageous, I think, and I think people have every right to be furious about this.
And how are they going to pay for this, Jonathan? Because this is going to presumably be passed on in even higher fares, and our train fares are pretty high already.
That is a legitimate question. I think that one really interesting part of Rachel Reeves' announcement before Parliament broke for recess was that despite the cuts that she announced to Tory infrastructure plans, and I happen to disagree with a lot of some cuts because I think we need to invest in our infrastructure to boost productivity, and also the winter fuel payments cut that sort of divided the left in quite an interesting way, because a lot of the left objects to means testing, for example, and things that we should have universal benefits, but at the same time there is an acknowledgement there are a lot of very, very wealthy pensioners who themselves are saying they didn't need the money. Look, I happen to think that was a mistake as well.
It's a huge mistake.
And I don't think it's fair to either bribe groups of voters or to punish them, but that's a slightly separate issue. One interesting thing that she did, which I thought was really important and sent an important signal, was that she was going to accept the findings and the recommendations of all the independent pay review bodies about how to pay for public service workers. Because,
but do you not see what she's done now? What she's done is that she's put a big message out there, and it strikes pay. So now all the other public sector
strikes unions, do pay, Carol. We know that. That's why people strike.
All the public sector unions now. I mean, the doctors have been sorted, but lots of public sector unions are going to say, well, if they've had 14% over the next 3 years, we're going to go on strike until we get it.
I think that people are reasonable, no matter what you think.
People, oh, please, hello.
Look, the previous government allowed the biggest period of industrial unrest in decades to carry on. They took months and months and months to sit down with key unions to try and negotiate things. They did not, certainly according to many of the unions, negotiate in good faith. Now you have a Labour government.
What they said was this was the deal. This is the final. What the government said is this is your final offer, and we're not going to talk about it again because there's no more money. That's not refusing to sit down. They had sat down with them for months.
It's refusing to negotiate.
No,
negotiations.
They had done
negotiations mean that both sides have to compromise something. What you have is a Labour government coming in and basically trying to reset the political atmosphere and the political
you have
stage.
A government coming in that is actually pandering to its paymasters.
Well, you would obviously see it that way. Obviously, you would see it that way. I'm trying to see it in a different perspective.
Back to the point. How is it going to be paid for?
Well,
it's going to be higher fares.
Andrew, we can have a conversation about how governments are funded, and clearly...
He could be a politician. Answer his question. How is it going to be paid for?
Well, look, I'm not here to defend the Labour Party. I think that we should have more borrowing, more taxes. I think that the arbitrary fiscal rules that Reeves has set up about debt are actually going to hamstring her, and I think that it was a mistake for Labour to box itself in by refusing to countenance major tax rises. I happen to think that there are all kinds of tax rises that you could make on the edges to taxing the people with the broadest shoulders. And also, we have to remember...
But the broadest shoulders, the people who are going to pay for this are the people who get on trains. They are not the broadest shoulders. They are working people trying to make a living.
Obviously, people who use trains will have to shoulder some of the increases. That's why we have train fares in this country.
But look,
I think that we need to have a broader conversation about public transport in this country. Anyway, in particular, the rail network. We know that we have some of the highest price on the network in Europe. We don't have the high-speed networks that most of our neighbours have.
It's going to be renationalised within the next couple of years anyway, isn't it, under Labour, the train service? And it does seem complicated at the moment.
It is.
Who owns the track compared to who employs the drivers, who owns the trains? I think it does need...
And rail nationalisation is actually a really popular policy, and that's why I think that a lot of the people on the left were really happy about Labour's policy on that.
But the idea that the trains network under British Rail, when it was nationalised, ran effectively, it was appalling. It was appalling.
No one says that...
There are no halcyon days.
No one says that having something owned by the state in itself makes something good. Well, the argument is
can't run things.
If the public owns something, something can be run in the public good, not in the...
It's not the public running something. It will be politicians setting targets, and politicians are no good at running things.
Yes.
They're useless.
Well, they need to employ the right people.
Sometimes things are well run, sometimes things aren't well run. This is an opportunity to take the profit element out of it and to deliver for the public. That's the same argument we have in water companies, national utilities.
Do you really think this is delivering for the public? This is doing the opposite.
I think it is delivering.
And, people get
for the public to not have strikes.
People who are already well paid, very well paid for what they do, play the victim. Because, ASLEF is a big unit, it can fight for its members. There are other people who are, all the union bosses always say, we're fighting for the workers, for the people who do the cleaning, for the people who work the long hours. No, they're not. They're fighting for themselves. And this is not the poorest in that union. This is people who are already very well paid.
The fundamental point is that we have seen absolute misery across the country with strikes in the health service, on the trains, in many, and with more people threatening to walk out, actually. And so it's important for the government to kind of try and reset and say, we're going to negotiate, we're going to give you pay rises.
What they've done is they've said to everyone in future, every public sector organisation, go on strike and we'll give you exactly what you want. And that's what's happened here. That is not a negotiation.
And we've got, since the election, for the first time in 60 years, Jonathan, GPs effectively bringing in a work to rule. So they'll be cutting their appointments with patients.
That wasn't because of the new Labour government. That had been brewing for a long time.
But I thought this was all going to come to an end.
Well, look, I will very much expect Wes Streeting to negotiate with the GPs and their representatives to try and sort that out.
They'd have seen what the junior doctors got, 22%.
Yeah,
where's ours?
Yes, but nurses didn't get that much, for example. Look, every single profession will be different. I mean, everyone accepts that.
GPs most of them who are partners in their practices are on an average of 153 grand a year. That's really hard done by.
I mean,
not.
So obviously, GPs are well paid. No one's denying that.
Yeah. Well, they are. They're saying they want more money.
They're not denying they're well paid. I think they're disputing the conditions in which they have to work.
Right, Carol.
Good to see you two.
Thank you. You'll be back in the next hour. We only got through one story there.
Yes, big story.
Right, Cameron Walker is here with the very latest news headlines.
Thanks, Bev. It's 10:31. I'm Cameron Walker here in the GB Newsroom. The proportion of A-level entries awarded top grades is up on last year and remains above pre-pandemic levels. Hundreds of thousands of students in England, Wales and Northern Ireland received their exam results today in a year when grading was expected to be restored to pre-pandemic levels. More than three-quarters of English 18-year-old applicants have been accepted into their first choice of university. That's according to figures from the UK government. GB News has spoken to students at Lichfield's Cathedral School.
Well, it's also gone pretty well. I've gotten into the university I wanted to.
Better than I expected.
Well, it feels amazing and weird at the same time.
I've had to do Year 12 twice, but I'm finally here and I've actually gone and done it, so I'm really happy.
The economy is continuing its recovery from last year's recession, with growth extending over the latest quarter. The Office for National Statistics says gross domestic product increased by 0.6% between April and June. Former Conservative Chancellor Jeremy Hunt says today's figures are further proof Labour has inherited a growing and resilient economy. But Labour's Chancellor Rachel Reeves says she has inherited more than a decade of slow economic growth from the Tories. Train drivers are to vote on a new offer aimed at ending their long-running pay dispute, which has resulted in days of strike action. The ASLEF union said the offer was made in talks at the Department for Transport, which started after Labour won the general election, following months of stalemate under the Conservatives. The drivers are being recommended to accept the offer, which could bring an end to industrial action and overtime bans. Manchester Police has confirmed they have submitted a file to the Crown Prosecution Service for advice after 3 officers were injured in an incident at Manchester Airport last month. 4 men remain on police bail after a series of alleged assaults. Separately, though, 2 Greater Manchester police officers remain under criminal investigation for assault following the incident on the 23rd of July. Now, drivers are being urged to avoid scanning QR codes to pay for parking following a number of scams. The RAC is advising drivers to make payments only with cash, cards or official apps. Recently, fraudsters have been placing stickers featuring QR codes on parking signs in locations across the country, taking victims to fake websites to input their card details. Criminals then spend money from their accounts. And global superstar Taylor Swift, she is closing the European leg of her Eras tour with 5 nights at London's Wembley Stadium. It's the first time she's returned to the UK since paying tributes to the victims of the Southport attack last month, which saw 3 young girls die after a mass stabbing dance class with her music as the theme. Earlier this month, Taylor Swift was forced to cancel 3 shows in Vienna after a suspected Islamist terror plot. Well, those are your latest GB News headlines for now. I'm Cameron Walker, back in half an hour.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Up next, as the Sussexes set off on their trip to Colombia.
Groan and moan.
Is this the reason their Chief of Staff, Josh Kettler, quit his job earlier this week? Interesting. This is Britain's Newsroom on GB News.
Morning. Welcome to your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News. Something of a north-south split today. Lots of cloud across the north. Outbreaks of rain this morning, whereas much of the south staying dry until tonight. In fact, a much brighter day on the south coast compared to yesterday. But it's dull and damp for much of Scotland and Northern Ireland this morning. That rain is trickling into northwest England and North Wales and will continue to spread southwards towards the Midlands by the end of the afternoon. At the same time, it does start to clear from the far northwest. Yes, we'll see increasing cloud further south, but we should see some decent spells of sunshine, 25, 26 degrees. In this rainier zone, though, it's also going to be quite windy, particularly for North Wales, northwest England, southwest Scotland. By the time we get to this evening's rush hour, the rain should be pulling away from most of Scotland. Some sunny spells over the Highlands, but still 1 or 2 showers. Could still be quite grey on the east coast at this stage and potentially through the central belt, although the rain will be heading away by 5 or 6 o'clock. Should be clearing from Northern Ireland by then as well, so for many here a fine evening. Still quite blustery over Wales and northwest England with outbreaks of rain. It's just spreading down towards the southwest, whereas East Anglia in the southeast should stay dry well into the evening. It's not really until later on we start to see that rain spreading across East Anglia and then the southeast of England. 1 or 2 heavy bursts as it clears through. For many, it'll turn clearer and cooler, with temperatures down to single figures in rural parts of Scotland and Northern Ireland. Still quite warm and humid across East Anglia and the southeast. Any early rain should scoot away tomorrow morning, but there is the potential the warmth and humidity may linger across the southeast, which could give some afternoon showers. Certainly looking at some showers across the northwest of Scotland. For many, tomorrow's a decent looking day. Dry and bright. A fresher feel as well, and temperatures close to the average for the time of year. Generally high teens across the north, low to mid-20s further south.
The latest GB News travel.
Good morning, I'm Russell Holding. In Angus, the A92 is blocked southbound by an accident between the Elliott roundabout and Salmons Muir, causing queues towards Dundee. The M66 in Greater Manchester is very busy southbound towards Junction 4 for the M60 at Simister Island. After a problem earlier, all lanes are back open. It's still very slow from Junction 3 at Hollins. In Surrey, the A324 is closed in both directions along Notfield Drive off the A320 Victoria Way in Woking after an accident. We've got the air ambulance at the scene. On the M26 in Kent, there are westbound delays approaching the M25 because of roadworks. The Eurotunnel reporting a wait of up to an hour for passengers at Folkestone, and Skybus and Penzance helicopter flights to and from the Isles of Scilly are on hold because of poor visibility. That's the latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website gbnews.com.
10:37. This is Britain's Newsroom on GB News.
Today marks day one of Prince Harry and Meghan's tour of Colombia.
So they're going to spend time visiting notable leaders and women's rights activists in the South American country on what's being called a quasi-royal trip. Sorry.
And also, Princess Anne, who we all know and love as Britain's hardest working royal, she's celebrating her 74th birthday today. But let's talk about Meghan and Harry with the former BBC royal correspondent Michael Cole, who's a great friend of this programme. Michael, what's the point of this trip to Colombia? They've gone out there as guests of the Vice President. Is it another attempt to raise their flagging profile?
Good morning, Andrew. Good morning, Bev. You know, this is the riskiest thing the Sussexes have done since they scooted off to Canada in 2020. They should be very concerned. What they have to sell is their celebrity and their royal status, and they should be very careful about selling that celebrity too cheaply and to whom they're selling it, because within Colombia, which is a beautiful country with wonderful people and much to recommend it, but it is also controversial. The cocaine cartels, Pablo Escobar, and so on. And within the country, there are people in opposition to the government who are saying that the government of Gustavo Petro will exploit his royal visitors for his own political ends. Now, obviously, they're going there to do what they think is good, to follow up the causes they believe in, to spread goodwill and do lots of other good and fine things. But they should be very, very careful about the people around them. We don't know, of course, why their chief of staff quit. The jargon is that it wasn't a good fit. He wasn't a good fit with Meghan, who we see there, and Harry, and he left. But it could have been over this visit to Colombia, and I would quite understand that. Do you know, I actually feel for the Sussexes because they really need Buckingham Palace. Whenever there's a royal invitation, it is scrutinised, whether it's in this country or it's abroad. Is it the right place to go? Are these the right people we want the royal personages to be meeting? Should we go? How does it fit with our politics? What does Number 10 think about it? Now, of course, they haven't got that help. They haven't got that guidance. And I'm sure if advice was given, they wouldn't take it. You know, one of the only regrets the late Queen, the grandmother of the man we can see there, had during her long reign was inviting a state visit by the Romanian tyrant Nicolae Ceausescu in 1978. And he was staying at Buckingham Palace and wandering around the gardens. The Queen actually hid in a bush to avoid him. It did happen. And of course, 11 years later, on Christmas Day, Ceausescu and his wife were shot by a firing squad Christmas Day by their own people. That's how controversial it was. Now, you also mentioned that the invitation has come this time from the Vice President, a woman called Francia Marquez. Now, she is the Minister of Equality and Justice. Equality, get that word? Well, she's been flying around the country in helicopters. She's not content with official residence of the Vice President. She's building her own house. People say, well, what has this got to do with equality? Because most people, or many of the people, sadly in Colombia, are well below the poverty line.
Michael, can we just reflect for a minute? Andrew and I were laughing about the fact that Harry and Meghan called Josh Kettler, who's basically their PR guy and their manager. They called him their chief of staff. I mean, it's the most
very
grandiose title. They're just celebrities. Why do they need a chief of staff?
Well, if you're in a hilltop fortress at Montecito, you have your own little port. Oh, it's surprising they didn't call him Sir Galahad, isn't it? It could be. They've got their California Camelot has its own courtiers, I'm quite sure. But as I think you've alluded to in the past, rather a lot of them have left. I think there is count is 18 people who work.
Michael, I was also struck. Harry says he couldn't bring Meghan to Britain because he doesn't think it's safe enough, and there's all the issues over royal protection officers. But Colombia has a murder rate 13 times higher than any country in Europe. He's going to one of the most dangerous countries in that region.
Cali cartels, Bogota.
Yeah.
My goodness. And then if we go back to where they live, Los Angeles, the murder rate there is nothing to be envied by any means at all. Of course, they'll have protection, but it does make you wonder if it's not safe enough to come over here with the appropriate level of police protection. Let's make it clear. Harry and Meghan would receive the appropriate measure of armed police protection, but it would be decided by the Home Office, by their his father's government would decide the level of protection they'd get. And when he comes here, he comes in police Range Rovers with guards and all the rest of it. It's just that it's not going to be 24 round-the-clock coverage. So one wonders what goes through their mind. Of course, we wish them the very best of good fortune in Colombia. I'm sure they'll see some wonderful things, meet some wonderful people, and make friends with lovely children. That will all go well, but it's the look, and I'm quite sure had they asked Buckingham Palace about this, I think that would have been a discreet, oh no, I don't think we should go there.
I often sort of wonder about their finances, actually, because this must be costing them, presumably. This trip is going to be paid for partly by the Sussexes themselves, presumably, and it is not an income-generating event. It's just a photograph-generating event.
I suppose they think that will lead to income generation.
But how? Because no brand wants to be associated with them in any way. I don't know what their situation is with Netflix at the moment, whether they have another programme coming up. His book did well, but, I mean, what I'm talking about, I look at them and I think they are hemorrhaging money, cash, left, right and centre. And how do they make a living, Michael?
Well, round-the-clock security, 3 shifts, early men protecting you. You can burn through a lot of money. Don't forget, Bev, that when tragically and sadly his mother died, he had a very large inheritance, rumoured to be £7 million, but royal wills are always sealed. We don't know. And he will receive, when he becomes 40 in September 15th, a bequest from the late Queen Mother, who looked after all her great-grandchildren in that way. And, of course, when she was in Toronto making suits all those years, I think it was 7 or 8 seasons of it, she was quite well paid. But it is undoubtedly true. If you want to live at the high level of their friends in Los Angeles, that's going to cost you an awful lot of money, and it can disappear very, very, very quickly. And one would hate to see. One would hate to see them having to downsize to their chicken run.
Just very briefly, Michael, we've got to say goodbye, but happy birthday to the greatest royal, in my opinion, Princess Anne. I wouldn't have thought she'd be doing anything particularly lavish.
No, I think she would like. Well, she is, and I've worked with her around the world. She's always quite tough, but always got on with her well. She spoke her mind. She was very, very definitely her father's daughter.
Certainly was.
Yeah.
That's Michael Cole. Thanks so much for joining us. And if you're watching us, Mum, Princess Royal, happy birthday, Princess Anne.
Happy birthday. Right, still to come. Now, we have to look like we know what we're talking about here, Andrew Pearce. It's over, say the headlines. Tommy Fury and Molly May have split after 5 years. Do you have any idea who they are, Andrew?
None whatsoever.
I don't know. Look, this is a woman who clearly has a young baby at this point. I don't know how long ago these pictures were taken. Any family falling apart is sad, but this apparently is huge news. We'll tell you all about it in just a moment.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Dubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the argument. We get rid of the disrespect. And then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together and what have we got, in my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
We got an incredible story this week of a young teenager who has raised more than £5,000 for charity.
13-year-old, just 13 years old, Cameron Hutchison cycled the West Highland Way with his dad, Colin, in just 25 hours, raising money for international food charity Mary's Meals. And the 96-mile route took Cameron and Colin to the foot of Ben Nevis.
Wow. Now, the organisation provides daily school meals to more than 2.4 million children in countries such as Syria, Haiti and Malawi.
We are delighted to be joined now by cyclist and fundraiser Cameron Hutchison. Cameron, it's so lovely to have you here. How are you today?
I'm very good, thank you. How are you?
Yeah, very well.
Well, we're very impressed to have you. We are honoured to have you. First of all, do you like cycling?
Yeah, it's one of my favourite sports, so yeah, I just wanted to do that.
What kind of bike did you do that enormous distance in? Did you have a special bike? Was it adapted?
Well, it was my cross-country bike that I just normally use for cross-country races. So, yeah.
Wow.
You can actually see it on the screen there with the blue handlebars. That's the bike I was using.
We can, and quite a route you went on as well. So, Cameron, you're 13 years old. When did you start cycling?
I've sort of been cycling my whole life. So I got a little red balance bike when I was maybe 3 or 2, maybe. And then I kind of just got bigger bikes as I went on.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Welcome to State of the Nation, daily plunge into the stories shaping our country. I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg, and Monday to Thursday we bring you the insights, the facts, the truth about how our country is being governed. Because what happens in Downing Street matters down your street. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
10:50, this is Britain's Newsroom on GB News.
Well, she's back. American pop goddess Taylor Swift. She's in London for the final leg in Europe of her Eras tour.
So it's a sold-out show, of course. It's going to have 90,000 fans making their way to Wembley. And the failed terror plot at her shows in Vienna means that there'll be extra security measures in place in London.
Well, our reporter Adam Cherry joins us live from Wembley. Adam, are you a Swiftie?
Oh, guilty as sin, Andrew. Yeah, absolutely. I'm wearing pink just especially for it. I'm not the only one already. I mean, the gig doesn't start until 7:30, but we've been here for about 50 minutes, and already it's getting pretty busy here. There's a lot of glitter. There's a lot of fancy hats. We went over to the merchandise stand, and it costs £15, but it's 20 quid if you want one with glitter and tassels on it. So I'm kind of weighing up that option at the moment. As you say, of course, this is the first gig since that failed terror plot. The show goes on here, of course. There'll be added security. The fans will not be able to congregate as they often do at Taylor Swift concerts. Those without tickets will not be able to congregate outside and sing along. And obviously there'll be a lot of, every bag will be searched, it will be heightened. But, people are here to have a good time and they're not letting that put them off. So it's a good atmosphere already.
Adam, there was some talk that she had an actual impact on our inflation figures in this country because when she was here earlier, hotel prices, particularly where she was performing, went through the roof.
Well, good, great. I mean, let's tell Rachel Reeves. We need her here more often. Yeah, as you say, sold out tonight. She's here for 5 nights, so everyone's happy. It's fantastic.
And are you a fan, Adam? Tell us the truth now.
I mean, I can probably name a handful of songs, but look, like I said, everyone's here to have fun. And maybe after tonight, I'll be a super fan. I'll be a Swiftie. I'll have a friendship bracelet and all that. I'm learning all the terms. London loves Taylor, I'm told. So here we are.
Thank you, Adam Cherry there at Wembley. I think last time we talked about Taylor Swift, we got you to sing one of the songs, didn't we?
Yeah. Well, the thing is, because I didn't know the name, I couldn't name a single Taylor Swift song, and I don't think I've knowingly ever heard her singing anything.
Look,
I get she's really famous and popular, but it's passed me by completely.
And do you know what? I'm just sorry. I'm looking at my screen. I don't like doing that when I'm on the telly. But I just wanted to bring up the details about when her concerts were cancelled in Austria, because that was. The implications of that, we're seeing in Wembley tonight. The idea that these young girls can't just
congregate outside.
Thank you, that's the word I was looking for.
Yeah.
You know, just to enjoy the occasion and
it's rather sad, isn't it?
That's right. There was, and one guy I think was arrested, wasn't it? 2 people were arrested on suspicion of planning attacks inspired by the Islamic State group in Austria. And the idea was that the Islamic State, these particular terrorists, were so appalled. But Taylor Swift is a woman who is a feminist, comfortable in her own sexuality, isn't married, but has had multiple boyfriends, and it's a celebration of female success. And that was why she was the target.
And remember the terrorists who targeted Ariana Grande, did they not? At the concert where over 20 young people were killed.
I'm sure it was a coincidence at the Southport stabbings. Who knows whether that's a Taylor Swift connection. I think that's a coincidence.
Because, of course,
the poor woman.
The children were going to a Taylor Swift dance class and making her bracelets.
And, of course, Taylor Swift has this kind of this negativity sort of that she has to wake up in the morning and know that this is kind of around her at the moment, the same way that Ariana Grande had to deal with it. But she's definitely one of the hardest working women in show business by all accounts.
Yeah, well,
she's like you. She's
even
like,
if I don't know who she
you're
is.
like the telly version of Taylor Swift because you're the hardest working man in the news media and Taylor Swift is the hardest working woman in music.
Now, still to come, monkeypox has been declared a global emergency. This is going to get Ms Turner going. This is Britain's Newsroom on GB News. Alex has your weather.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Morning. Welcome to your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News. Something of a north-south split today. Lots of cloud across the north. Outbreaks of rain this morning, whereas much of the south staying dry until tonight. In fact, a much brighter day on the south coast compared to yesterday. But it's dull and damp for much of Scotland and Northern Ireland this morning. That rain is trickling into northwest England and North Wales and will continue to spread southwards towards the Midlands by the end of the afternoon. At the same time, it does start to clear from the far northwest. Yes, we'll see increasing cloud further south, but we should see some decent spells of sunshine, 25, 26 degrees. In this rainier zone, though, it's also going to be quite windy, particularly for North Wales, northwest England, southwest Scotland. By the time we get to this evening's rush hour, the rain should be pulling away from most of Scotland. Some sunny spells over the Highlands, but still 1 or 2 showers. Could still be quite grey on the east coast at this stage and potentially through the central belt, although the rain will be heading away by 5 or 6 o'clock. Should be clearing from Northern Ireland by then as well, so for many here a fine evening. Still quite blustery over Wales and northwest England with outbreaks of rain. It's just spreading down towards the southwest, whereas East Anglia in the southeast should stay dry. Well into the evening. It's not really until later on we start to see that rain spreading across East Anglia and then the southeast of England. 1 or 2 heavy bursts as it clears through. For many, it will turn clearer and cooler, with temperatures down to single figures in rural parts of Scotland and Northern Ireland. Still quite warm and humid across East Anglia and the southeast. Any early rain should scoot away tomorrow morning, but there is the potential the warmth and humidity may linger across the southeast, which could give some afternoon showers. So looking at some showers across the northwest of Scotland. For many tomorrow's a decent looking day, dry and bright, a fresher feel as well, and temperatures close to the average for the time of year, generally high teens across the north, low to mid-20s further south.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
You really could become the next giveaway winner with your chance to win £30,000 in tax-free cash to spend on anything you like. Listen to what some of our previous winners have to say about winning big with us.
Hi, my name's Victoria. I won the Spring Great British giveaway. So the day we got the money in our bank account, everything just felt just a lot nicer. We went out for dinner, just enter. And you never expect to win, but I did.
Get your entry in now. For another chance to win £30,000 in tax-free cash, text cash to 63232. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. You can enter online at gbnews.com/win. Entries cost £2. Or post your name and number to GB07 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on the 30th of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Your lunchtime update on the stories that matter across the UK.
From breaking news and insightful analysis, inspiring stories and lively debates. You're comparing yourself to a former Prime Minister.
Which is it? Stay informed, stay updated, stay entertained.
I just don't know how anyone would not want to be there.
Every weekday from midday.
We are Good Afternoon Britain, only on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent? I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Are the newspapers getting you down?
My wife didn't divorce me that month.
Struggling to separate the wheat from the chaff?
I know that it's a bit of a circus at the best of times.
Well, don't worry. Headliners has got you covered. We'll take the burden of reading the day's news, and if we get depressed, who cares? It's an occupational hazard, frankly. That's Headliners on GB News from 11 p.m. till midnight, and the following morning, 5 till 6 a.m. on GB News, the comedy channel. Nah, just kidding. Britain's news channel.
I'm Patrick Christie's. Every weeknight from 9, I bring you 2 hours of unmissable, explosive debate and headline-grabbing interviews. What impact has that had?
We got death threats and the bomb threat and so on.
As time passes,
she could have said Storm. You made my argument for me.
My guests and I tackle the issues that really matter with a sharp take on every story.
Went everywhere.
Something practical could be done.
Or I can become something different.
Patrick Christie's tonight from 9 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Morning, 11 a.m. on Thursday, the 15th of August, live across the UK. This is Britain's Newsroom with Andrew Pearce and Bev Turner.
Thank you for joining us this morning. So A-level results day and also T-levels and BTECs. 76% of 18-year-old students in England have been accepted into their first choice university. Will Hollis has more.
Despite expectations for A-level results to go back down to where they were in 2019, the Department for Education says that students are performing better this year than pre-COVID.
Yeah, more than 400,000 applicants across the UK have managed to gain a place at university from this results day, but many places still on offer. Clearing hotlines across the country at universities are open and busy.
And is it finally an end to those rail strikes? Because the train drivers have been offered a whacking 15% pay rise over 3 years. And does this mean industrial action will come to an end? But at what cost? Has the government just caved in?
And Swifties in London. Taylor Swift's tour resumes at Wembley today. It's her first show since the failed terror plot in Vienna that saw 3 concerts cancelled. There will be beefed up security measures in place, of course.
And it's terrible news. It's over. Molly May and Tommy Fury, brackets who, have split after 5 years together. Bev and I are very upset. Well, we will be when we work out who they are. They are a social media sensation, aren't they?
I think they met on Love Island, apparently.
Yeah, which I've never watched.
If you would like to do our research for us this morning and tell us who Molly May and the Fury guy are, we would very much appreciate it. gbnews.com/your
He's related to the boxer, isn't he?
Tyson Fury's brother, yeah. I do. Right. I know that much about them, but I'm sure this is one of those stories that divides the country via age in a way that never used to happen in the news media. There'll be all the youngsters are going, you old dinosaurs, how can you not know?
Trending on social media for hours and hours and hours. And when I read about it, I had to look up who they were.
Yeah, we had no idea.
I'd never heard of them.
Did you? Let us know. Here's Cameron Walker. He'll know who they are. He's got your news.
Thanks, Bev. 2 minutes past 11, I'm Cameron Walker here in the GB Newsroom. The proportion of A-level entries awarded top grades is up on last year and remains above pre-pandemic levels. Hundreds of thousands of students in England, Wales and Northern Ireland received their exam results earlier today, in a year where grading was expected to be restored to pre-pandemic levels. More than 3/4 of English 18-year-old applicants have been accepted into their first choice of university. GB News has spoke to students at Lichfield's Cathedral School.
The results have gone pretty well. I've gotten into the university I wanted to.
Better than I expected.
It feels amazing and weird at the same time.
I've had to do year 12 twice, but I'm finally here and I've actually gone and done it, so I'm really happy.
The economy is continuing its recovery from last year's recession, with growth extending over the latest quarter, according to official data. The Office for National Statistics said gross domestic product increased by 0.6% between April and June. Former Conservative Chancellor Jeremy Hunt says today's figures are further proof Labour has inherited a growing and resilient economy. But Labour's Darren Jones, Chief Secretary to the Treasury, says the government inherited a huge financial challenge from the Tories.
The economic facts are clear. Because we have the highest debt burden that we've had for over 60 years, and we're having to spend billions and billions of pounds on debt interest to pay that off every month, and because working people have got the highest tax burden since the 1940s, people at home know, and anyone can look at the statistics, that what we inherited from the Conservatives was the worst fiscal inheritance since the Second World War.
Train drivers are to vote on a new offer aimed at ending their long-running pay dispute, which has resulted in days of strike action. The ASLEF union said the offer was made in talks at the Department for Transport, which started after Labour won the general election following months of stalemate under the Conservatives. The drivers are being recommended to accept the offer, which could bring an end to industrial action and overtime bans. Government Minister Baroness Smith says Labour wants a partnership with businesses and trade unions.
Come to an agreement with the train unions that means that people won't be stranded at home and the economy won't be suffering with train strikes continuing. So this is a partnership to make sure that we're able to get to work, we're able to get the public services.
The government is pledging £13.5 million in funding to support supply chain businesses and workers affected by the Tata Steel's decision to transition to greener steel making, which is expected to lead to job losses. It is understood more than 50 businesses so far have signed a pledge to support any workers forced to leave their jobs in the steelworks. Negotiations between the UK government and Tata Steel regarding the future of the Port Talbot works is continuing separately. Now, Manchester Police have confirmed they have submitted a file to the Crown Prosecution Service for advice after 3 officers were injured in an incident at Manchester Airport last month. 4 men remain on police bail after a series of alleged assaults. Separately, 2 Greater Manchester police officers remain under criminal investigation for assault following the incident on the 23rd of July. Now, drivers are being urged to avoid scanning QR codes to pay for parking following a number of scams. The RAC is advising drivers to make payments only with cash, cards or official apps. Recently, fraudsters have been placing stickers featuring QR codes on parking signs in locations across the country, taking victims to fake websites to input their card details before spending money from their accounts. Women living with breast cancer are being put at risk because of staff shortages who can deliver specialist scans. That's according to the Society of Radiographers, who've warned that a shortage of mammographers have reached critical levels in the NHS in England, leading to late diagnosis and treatment delays. The government says it will tackle these issues head-on to ensure the NHS has the staff it needs to be there for all of us when we need it. And the Princess Royal is marking her 74th birthday today. The King's younger sister, frequently dubbed Britain's hardest working royal, cheered on a number of Team GB athletes at the Paris Olympics last week in her role as the British Olympic Association president. Earlier this summer, she was hospitalised with concussion and minor injuries after being kicked or headbutted by a horse. The Duke and Duchess of Sussex are expected to arrive in Colombia after an official invitation by the country's Vice President. It's understood Prince Harry and Meghan will focus on the impact of the digital world on young people, the military community and female empowerment. The Duke and Duchess will also explore Colombia's history and culture. And global superstar Taylor Swift is closing the European leg of her Eras tour with 5 nights at London's Wembley Stadium. It's the first time she's returned to the UK since paying tributes to the victims of the Southport attack last month, where 3 girls lost their lives in a Taylor Swift-themed dance class. Earlier this month, Taylor Swift also had to cancel 3 shows in Vienna after a suspected Islamist terror plot. Well, those are the latest GB News headlines for now. I'm Cameron Walker. More in half an hour.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Oh, welcome back to Britain's Newsroom, live across the United Kingdom. Should we say that with pride on GB News?
I love my country.
I love my country. I was discussing with my daughter yesterday, my 13-year-old, how everyone speaks. She was like, isn't it funny when we go away at Mummy on holiday and everyone speaks English?
Yeah.
Aren't we lucky? And
Yeah.
I said, yes, it is a privilege to live in this country because when we go abroad, we can be lazy with our languages.
Can, and we are, and I'm afraid I am.
Which is not good.
I'm pidgin French. That's all I've got.
Me too. I'd like to. I'm actually going to teach myself Italian. You know, give me a year.
Yeah, it's a good language, and Spanish would be better because more people Spanish is spoken in more countries.
I'd like to spend more time in Italy though, so I'd quite like to get to speak. But talking of languages, A-level results day, of course, the proportion of A-level entries awarded top grades is up on last year, remains above pre-pandemic levels.
And hopefully many parents and teenagers celebrating across England, Wales and Northern Ireland today. So Will Hollis is at Lichfield Cathedral School and Jack Carson is at Coventry University. Will, to you.
Yes, well, there is a lot of expectations for today as thousands of A-level students around the country rip open those envelopes and find out if they're celebrating or if they're looking for commiserations. Now, we've just heard from the Department for Education not too long ago. We're expecting that this will be the first year that results would go back down to what they were in pre-pandemic levels. But what we've heard from the Education Secretary is that around 76% of students that received their A-level results today got into their first choice of university. Now that's 4% higher than it was last year in 2023 after a period of inflated grades, those measured where students were given slightly higher grades based on predictions from their teachers because of the damage that was done to education during that period of the pandemic. But in fact, it's even students this year in 2024 have even performed better than before the pandemic in 2019 by about 1%. I have been speaking to some of the students here at Lichfield Cathedral School who were pretty happy with the results that they've received this morning.
They've gone fantastic. I've got more than I needed and I'm off to study at Lancaster University.
I think my results have gone pretty well. I've gotten into the university I wanted to. I haven't got crazy good results, but I haven't got bad results either.
I've declined all my offers, so I'm wanting to change course, so I'm going to go through clearing in a minute.
They have gone really well, actually. I'm going to Lancaster Uni next. I'm doing a year abroad with nuclear engineering.
Results have gone very well. I got 3 A's and I needed AAB and I'm going to Exeter.
Oh, where is it? Where is it?
Well, you'll see now at Lichfield Cathedral School that it's an empty courtyard. That's because lots of students have gone off to the pub or to celebrate with their family. But some students will be on the phone right now to universities across the country, going through clearing to find out what their next step is when maybe they've done better or worse than expected. And Jack Carson is live for us at Coventry University.
Yeah, well, good afternoon, well, good morning, sorry, to you all. The clearing hotlines well underway here at Coventry University. From 8 a.m. when they opened, it was just minutes before the first calls started to come in. As Will was mentioning there, clearing isn't just about if you haven't reached the results that you've wanted. A lot of students aim for a specific course, maybe what they're doing, and in that time, in the last 6 months to a year of your A-levels, your opinions can change, your thoughts can change. What you maybe want to do is not what you thought initially, and you might get better results than what you thought. So it's about ringing up universities clearing. The hotlines are open, being able to call them up, have a chat with the university, talk through your grades is a really important part for a lot of students today into this afternoon. And there's often this big rush at the start of the day. Lots of people think that the places are going to go within the hour, and it's almost down to last person standing, but that's not the case. These clearing places are open across the country. There are thousands of places that universities look to fill on days like today as well. As Will was mentioning there about the record achievements of students as well, we've had more than 400,000 people achieve university places, more than 70% of them getting their first place today. There still is a gap when you look at where in the country 18-year-olds are going to university. Only just above 25% of 18-year-olds from the northeast are going to university places. That's in comparison to more than 42% from London. Now, that's not just because of necessarily attainment levels, but that's because of the different choices that 18-year-olds maybe make in those parts of the country as well, whether it's maybe more apprenticeship focused or degrees obviously aren't for everyone. And that's a lot of decision-making that students have got to make today, maybe if they haven't received the results that they've got. But how do you cope with that kind of pressure, the situation that a lot of 18-year-olds are under today? We spoke to Dr. Rachel Molitor, who's a chartered psychologist and lecturer here at Coventry University. She gave us some tips for students today.
Today is going to be a really exciting day for everybody, whether they are super elated with their grades, whether they are slightly disappointed. It's important to be able to keep calm and really think about what they're going to be opening and their future. So it's so important to not rush into any sort of decisions, not rush into reading something and taking any thoughts or feelings or just getting very excited or very disappointed. It's really good to be able to keep calm and just see where the future is going to go for them.
Yeah, so there's some handy advice from Dr. Molitor there. If you are looking at possibly going through clearing, if you've maybe not got the results you've wanted, if you've got the results that you didn't expect and you're trying to manage the expectations of today, manage how to work out day. Some handy advice for you there, Bev and Andrew.
Thank you, Jack. Jack, can we just ask you quickly, where is everybody? And you, Will, do students get up very early now? In my day, we wouldn't have got to college until 11 o'clock. We've been having a lie-in. Have they all been and gone already?
Well, it's the summer term here, isn't it, university? So half the students are probably back home, maybe with a summer job or away in the sunshine, I should think.
Tucked up in bed.
That explains where you are, Jack. But what about you, Will? Have they all been and gone home now?
Well, I heard that one of the local pub landlords is a parent of some of the students here, so they're all being given free fizz.
Oh, very
nice too. You should
very posh.
Get yourself there, Will. Get yourself there. Get some nice colour for us.
Thank you,
You've got
guys.
our permission. Great to talk to you. Well, let's talk now to Charlie Mullins, who is no stranger to this programme. He is the founder of Pimlico Plumbers, who famously did not go to university or even do A-levels, as I recall. Charlie, it's a big day for these kids, but you say, for a lot of people, don't worry about university, go and do an apprenticeship.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. But yes, of course, it's a big day and very exciting for them. But unfortunately, you know, universities are just conning many students, letting them come on a course and believing they're going to get the ideal job, and that's not going to be the case. You know, students really should be, I think, doing more and more apprenticeships and you know, learning something that we're going to need them for in the future. I mean, I don't want to take the lovely day away from them, but believe me, you know, this university thing is not going to turn out exactly what they want. They're obviously going to get the massive debt. not necessarily going to get a job. And at the moment, we need, 300 sort of houses built. So we need builders, plumbers, skilled workers. And the other thing I've noticed now is that universities, to get more bums on seats, are actually telling students to follow their passion and not necessarily the future kind of thing. Well, if you follow your passion, I mean, at the end of your dream, if it doesn't work out, you're going to be skint and you're going to have no money. So I'm not necessarily think it's great advice of what the universities are doing at the moment.
You're right, Charlie. I think that was advice that was really fitting, at least even 5 years ago, 10 years ago, definitely. But we're in this AI revolution now, and there was a list recently of jobs that will be in existence in 10 to 20 years when everyone else will have gone. We won't have a job, we'll be replaced by robots. And one of those, actually, Charlie, is a plumber, an electrician, someone who can actually build a wall. The future is going to be in the hands of people who work with their hands.
You're so right there. Again, I was speaking to people that have just gone into the banking industry, and they've told them that, they've got 5 years of one particular job, but 10 years of maximum before they're going to be replaced. So you're exactly right there. And we've just got to encourage more and more apprentices and let them realise that, yes, you're never going to be able to work, you're going to earn loads of money, and it's not going to be done away with. It's, as I say, they're talking about us going green, and at the moment, with the amount of tradesmen we're short of, it takes 50 years to change all the boilers in England. Where, if you get more and more of these students learning that type of thing on the technical side of it, it's just guaranteed it. I mean, you cannot. I mean, I have to be honest with you. I think that the bosses or the admin people at universities telling people to follow your passion and not necessarily, your future. And as I say, we follow our passion, we'll all be skint and not be in work.
Have you noticed, we hear lots of people talking about the fact that income has gone down, hourly wages aren't rising in line with inflation. If you are a plumber now, can you command a bigger hourly rate than you would have been able to do a few years ago?
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, I think, I don't think, but the company I used to have, I think it was about 120, 150 pounds an hour. We're going to be starting a new company up in October, and the charges, are going to be, very, very expensive because there's a massive shortage, a massive demand of it, and obviously, getting out and about in London. But wherever there's supply and demand, it's going to be high cost, and people are going to earn a fortune. I mean, if you want to be a millionaire, be a plumber, be a tradesman. There's no hesitation about it. I'm actually working with a guy from America that wants to set up trade schools and is prepared to pay all the trade school costs for a student to go there, and then he will sell them to a company, sell them on kind of thing, or pass them on for a fee. And so you can actually be trained as a plumber for nothing and earn an amazing salary at the end of 3 to 4 years.
Fantastic.
Honestly, it's a great opportunity for people now to give university a miss and get a job that they're going to just earn loads of money, because, as you say, the end result is they haven't got very long with all this technology.
OK, Charlie, thank you so much. Good to see you. Charlie Mullins, founder of Pimlico Plumbers, and an inspirational voice on Results Day, isn't it? What a difference. How much it's changed since Tony Blair came in and just said, I want everyone to go to university.
Well, he wanted a target of at least 50%, and it went up to 60% of 18-year-olds to go to university.
And people would look down their noses at a trade, not anymore.
And I've just looked at the current level of student loan debt owed to the government, £250 billion. The NHS budget is 182 billion, so that's the NHS budget and a bit more.
Isn't that ridiculous?
And it'll never be repaid.
It'll never be paid back.
Of course it won't.
Right, let us know your thoughts this morning, gbnews.com/your say. Up next, find out why career criminals with more than 100 convictions are getting an easy ride, and maybe even their door opened and they can walk out onto the street. This is Britain's Newsroom on GB News.
If you want your news to be straight talking...
This is the nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
Now, parents, should be given a £5,000 tax break to encourage them to have more children. That's according to a think tank called Onward.
Yes, their report suggests that the cost of parenthood is preventing couples from having as many children as they would like, and maybe actually stopping them from having a baby indeed at all. So with the birth rate at a record low, which is dangerous for our economy, isn't it? We are asking, should there be financial incentives to have children?
Let's talk to journalist Julie Cook and consultant Hilary Salt. Good to see you both. Julie, what do you think? I mean, should I be in effect, handing over my hard-earned money, in tax dollars at least, to couples so they can procreate?
I actually think it's a good idea, and I'm not a lefty by any stretch of the imagination, but we are in quite a critical time in terms of our population. Although our population is growing because of our ageing population, our birth rate is dangerously low. And according to the Lancet, I think we're going to be, I've got it written here, birth rate will drop to 1.38 by 2050 and 1.3 by 2100. And this is too low to sustain an ageing population. So although we've got lots of elderly now, you know, that's how it is, we don't have enough babies being born. And a booming baby boom is actually a sign of a booming economy. And I think people are scared now because of the cost of living. We've had COVID, we've now got this crisis. Why would people have a baby now? It's a terrifying time. But if you gave them an incentive, it might well boost our population, our birth rate.
GB News, the People's Channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
It's true. You're not wrong. No one will be cancelled.
Lovely. Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Carol Malone and Jonathan Liss are back with us in the studio to go through some stories. Let's crack right on, because we only got onto one, didn't we, earlier? Right, what do you want to talk about, Carol?
We're going to talk about these... Isn't it my turn to
Oh, go on, Jonathan.
No, because I know what you're going to talk about. I was going to say the same thing. It's only fair. We're going to talk about career criminals walk free in soft justice scandal, apparently.
It is a scandal.
Not
apparently, it's true.
OK, so what we... the framing is always interesting. And the story here is that career criminals with more than 100 previous convictions are being spared jail, according to the Telegraph. And this has been going on for 15 years. This is one of those stories that, in principle, everyone agrees. Well, I think most people agree that people who have multiple convictions need some kind of custodial sentence. I think that separate to that, and it's really important, but we do need to have a broad conversation, a national conversation.
Oh, we're not going to go into broad conversations about the not-subject.
Carol, but I think it's important just to say that we do need to have a conversation about prison, whether prison works, whether prison can make things worse, what the purpose of prison is.
Do you know what doesn't work, Jonathan? You know what doesn't work? Letting someone who has 26 convictions for burglary, when he comes up in court for the 27th, you let him off again. That doesn't work, because clearly it doesn't work, because he's committed burglary 26 or 27 times.
The question is, what do we do with these people?
You bang them up to get them off the street to protect people.
But Andrew, the slight problem with that is that we've had hundreds of millions of pounds of cuts in the criminal justice system. 43% of all courts have been were closed under the last Conservative government.
And they closed police numbers
come by you've got to... The Tories have built 2 prisons since 2020. They're in the process of building a 3rd. So what they closed, they have rebuilt. But the bottom line...
That's not true. There's a tiny... It's a rebalancing.
2
it hasn't made up...
prisons have been built by the Tories. The 3rd isn't processed.
Yeah, but they did close 7.
They might have, but they're rebuilding. Yeah. They can only rebuild. But hiding people sitting at home, watching people, robbers who do this habitually. And the figures on this are really quite shocking. It's saying that, people who've got, 21 previous convictions for a robbery can do it again, and they still get sent to jail.
What I think is interesting, if you juxtapose with what happened in the courts this week, the 55-year-old carer, woman, no criminal record, she's been sent to prison for 15 months because she put out a tweet, in terrible tweet, but she basically said, burn down the mosque with people in it. So she's been caught up in this the draconian sentencing as part of the riot.
She said she sent it in a moment of anger. She's never been in trouble with the police, and then she deleted it.
And yet serial burglars, serial shoplifters are escaping any form of custodial sentence, which means they're free to carry on offending.
I think that there's absolutely a conversation that we need to have about consistency, because things do need to be consistent. And but at the same time, you can also point to the people who appeared on the Zoom conversation about blocking the M25, who went to jail for 4 years. That was obviously completely preposterous as well. And then we have people who are found guilty of rape who get suspended sentences. Of course, there has to be a conversation about how we deal with
having a go with cops, because they solve just 5% of crimes, which is terrible because they're not doing their job properly. But what is the point of solving any crime if when you spend the time and money and effort to catch a criminal, they end up in court, and then the judge or the magistrates lets them off with a smack on the wrist? There's no point.
Prison spaces.
And I think
we've got plenty of spaces for the people who were rioting last week. There's plenty of spaces for them.
You know what? Who I've been recently very inspired by is this Tempus Nova. We've had those guys on. Remember the 2 prison officers?
Yeah.
Who work with rehabilitated
They were very good.
Prisoners, and they were on with Camilla Tominey on Sunday. If you didn't see it, have a look at it online. And they are very persuasive about the fact that prison for most people does not work, and all you get is reoffending. And they have an incredibly low rate of reoffending because they bring them out, they work with them, they get them a job, they get them a purpose. And so bring them out, Keir Starmer, but don't just put them on the street with nothing to do. Give them to an organisation like this. Fund these organisations.
That makes sense.
Get them in the community work.
There's a guy who used to run the prisons, a guy called Sir Martin Neri, and he said clearly 3 or 4 years ago, prison, he said rehabilitation does not work. He said all these schemes that we have in prisons that are 6 months, 6 weeks, whatever they are, he said you cannot undo a lifetime of harm. And he said the only way it would ever work, he said prison does work. He said at least you get them off the street and you get them out of the way of people who are going to get hurt by them. But he said the only way it would work was the kind of prison, the kind of scheme you're talking about, a prison that is run and is run properly. We know they're not run properly. We know everyone's smoking cannabis, or the prisoners, whatever.
Gang violence in prison.
Gang violence, all that going on. But that's in the ideal world, and we don't live in the ideal world. So for me, the most important thing is the victims of crime. They have to be protected, and they have to feel that justice has been done by them.
Can we do just a complete change of gear, guys, about the fact that sunbathing is good for us all of a sudden, that UV radiation is good for us? Carol, this is great news.
We were told we weren't doing that.
Factor 50. Don't you wear Factor 50, Malone?
Well, I do now, but I didn't used to.
Apparently, sunbathing improves the health of pasty Brits and outweighs the risks of sunburn, a study has shown.
And even in those awful sunbeds, apparently, they're saying that even the risks of those outweigh. I don't believe that, actually. But anyway, they're saying the risks of those outweigh. But, we know that sunbathing produces vitamin D.
Yeah.
We feel better. We're more energised. We look better. That's a fact. I mean, look better.
Getting the sun,
she's as brown as a nut.
But it ages.
Well, it is ageing, yes.
And skin cancer incidence has soared in this country.
Yes, it absolutely has. But people have got to go and get checked, and we should say that on air. If you do something, you've got to go and get checked all the time. But there's no doubt about it. It does make you feel better. That's a fact.
There is. I'm glad we're having a debate around this, though, because this research is saying that the benefits of sun exposure can outweigh the risks when you're living in gloomier parts of the UK, such as Scotland. So get out in the sun a bit.
Yeah, I mean, look, I got terribly sunburnt last week, and I was in sort of quite a lot of pain for a day. So I was kind of.
Did you fall asleep in the sun?
No, I just I was very English. I just thought I'd apply the sun cream on my back myself rather than asking my friends to do it for me.
Right.
Well, we see, but you got burned there. That's just idiocy. It's nothing to do with the sun. That's just that's you being an idiot.
You can't protect you from your own stupidity, Jonathan, I'm
say that to me?
Well, I think she's absolutely right. You should have got someone to help you. You can't do your own back.
You slather on. I've been on trips with him.
You put it on for me.
Together, I'd have asked you to do it.
Sunvest onto there. He goes in the sea. He looks like a diver, and he's not, of course, because he can't do it. You don't let a bit of your skin.
No.
You are the opposite. You should be getting out there.
You need a bit of vitamin D. We need a bit.
I think we need vitamin D.
Do you?
Yeah, I take vitamin D.
I think the pendulum swung a bit too much, though, on this. I mean, crikey, I used to lie out with baby oil when I was a teenager.
Do you remember when we were kids? My mum used to say, slap a bit of lemon juice and vinegar on.
Yeah.
That'd be nice for you.
Yeah. I know.
What are you making a pie or something?
Well, yeah, that's what we look like at the end of the day, a burned up pie.
Everything in moderation.
Well, that's the point.
Everything in
And
life
if
in
you like
moderation.
Jonathan, please don't try and put the sunblock on your back yourself.
yes,
Get some
yes.
help, because as Karen Malone said, Jonathan
I'm
was
sorry I mentioned
idiotic.
it. It's so stupid. Please don't be like me.
And is the pain over?
Yes, thank you.
Right.
You got
and we
The
are
political
over,
pain
unfortunately.
continues, alas.
Jonathan and Carol, thank you for this morning. Right, here's Cameron Walker with the headlines.
It's 11:31. I'm Cameron Walker here in the GB Newsroom. The proportion of A-level entries awarded top grades is up on last year and remains above pre-pandemic levels. Hundreds of thousands of students in England, Wales and Northern Ireland are receiving their exam results today. More than 3/4 of English 18-year-old applicants have been accepted into their first choice of university, according to the Department for Education. GB News has spoken to students at Lichfield's Cathedral School.
My results have gone pretty well. I've gotten into the university I wanted to.
Better than I expected.
It feels amazing and weird at the same time.
I've had to do year 12 twice, but I'm finally here and I've actually gone and done it, so I'm really happy.
The economy is continuing its recovery from last year's recession, with growth extending over the latest quarter. The Office for National Statistics says gross domestic product increased by 0.6% between April and June. Former Conservative Chancellor Jeremy Hunt says today's figures are further proof Labour has inherited a growing and resilient economy. But Labour's Chancellor Rachel Reeves says she has inherited more than a decade of low economic growth from the Tories. Manchester Police has confirmed they have submitted a file to the Crown Prosecution Service for advice after 3 officers were injured in an incident at Manchester Airport last month. 4 men remain on police bail after a series of alleged assaults. Separately, 2 Greater Manchester police officers remain under criminal investigation for assaults following the incident on the 23rd of July. Now, drivers are being urged to avoid scanning QR codes to pay for parking following a number of scams. The RAC is advising drivers to make payments only with cash, cards or official apps. Recently, fraudsters have been placing stickers featuring QR codes on parking signs in locations across the country, taking victims to fake websites to input their cards details. Criminals then spend money from their accounts. Women living with breast cancer are being put at risk because of a shortage of staff who can deliver specialist scans. That's according to the Society of Radiographers, who've warned that a shortage of mammographers have reached critical levels in the NHS in England, leading to late diagnosis and treatment delays. The government says it will tackle these issues head-on to ensure the NHS has the staff it needs to be there for all of us when we need it. And global superstar Taylor Swift is closing the European leg of her Eras tour with 5 nights at London's Wembley Stadium. It's the first time she's returned to the UK since paying tribute to the victims of the Southport attack last month, where 3 young girls died in a mass stabbing at a dance class featuring her music. Earlier this month, Taylor Swift was forced to cancel 3 shows in Vienna after a suspected Islamist terror plot. Well, those are your latest GB News headlines for now. I'm Cameron Walker. More in half an hour.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Delighted to say that Emily and Tom are with us to tell us what's coming up this afternoon, guys.
Yes.
We certainly are.
We've got an action-packed show for you. We're going to be speaking to Tom Tugendhat, who we all remember from the speech earlier this week. We're going to be asking him about a lot of stuff. There's this new rumour going around that all the Tories want the leadership contest to be sorted, done and dusted sooner rather than later. They're really dragging it out, so we're going to put that to him. I was going to ask him about the Taylor Swift concert, actually.
Absolutely. He's Shadow Security Minister, after all, and there is some huge security concerns around that. But perhaps most of all, I want to ask him about the peculiar background he was stood in front of on Monday. This sort of brown...
I didn't see this.
...creased, non-ironed, strange sort of curtain. And I just wondered, is it the best look for a leadership contender?
Yes,
I wonder if he was pleased with it, with how it looked aesthetically.
Hasn't he also been banging on this week about not being anonymous online? Isn't that his current thing?
Yes, he has.
Yes, he's made a lot of comments about the rights. He chose to make that speech all about the violent disorder and everything else. He also talked about Elon Musk and the like.
And he was critical of Keir Starmer for not addressing the underlying issues.
Yeah,
which
exactly
we've talked about a lot on this.
He said we needed a leader, not a lawyer.
Yeah.
That's right.
And of course, all these pay rises for everyone. Where's all that money coming from?
Can you just ask him on behalf of me, please, that if he is going to insist on a lack of anonymity online, can you make sure that the counter-disinformation unit operate under the same principles, so when they're spying on me, I'll know about it? Thanks.
I will ask him that, yes.
Thanks. Right, Emily and Tom will be here from midday. Next, we've got a brilliant report on the Beckenham street sweeper who stole the hearts of the nation. That sounds nice.
That's a lovely story. This is Britain's Newsroom on GB News.
Hey there, here's your latest GB News weather update coming to you from the Met Office. For many, there will be some decent sunny spells around today, but also some blustery winds and a few showers in the north. And there is a spell of rain pushing its way southeastwards. That's because of a frontal system that's currently marching across parts of Scotland, Northern Ireland and into northern England, already having brought quite a bit of rain this morning, and will continue to do so as it gradually makes its way across the country through the rest of today. But like I said, some sunny spells for many of us, especially across southern, eastern parts of England, and generally feeling pretty warm here, temperatures getting into the mid-20s Celsius. A bit fresher than this further north and west, even though there will be some sunny spells and just a few showers across parts of Scotland. Now, as we head through this evening, that rain is going to continue to make its way southeastwards, but it will have cleared away from much of Scotland, and so here it is just going to be a mixture of sunny spells and some showers as we go through the end of the day. Also, a largely dry picture across much of Northern Ireland, with that rain having cleared through and only 1 or 2 showers here. Much cloudier, wetter story though across much of England and Wales as that front gradually makes its way southeastwards, but still clinging on to some fine weather across parts of the southeast for a little while longer. But that rain is going to push its way through as we go overnight, and it could actually invigorate a little bit more, so some heavy rain possible across the far southeast through the early hours of tomorrow morning. Elsewhere, we will have dry and clear weather for many places, and so it could turn a little fresh for some of us. Temperatures in some rural spots could drop into mid-single figures. A bit of a wet start then possible across the far southeast first thing tomorrow morning, but that rain should quickly clear away, and then otherwise it's looking like a pretty fine day. Plenty of sunshine around, just some blustery showers to watch out for, particularly towards the northwest of Scotland, but most places avoiding these, and temperatures relatively similar to today. Again, we're looking at highs in the mid-20s. See you later.
Join me, Neil Oliver, every Sunday night at 6 p.m. on GB News. And if an hour is not nearly enough for you, go to gbnews.com for special extended episodes online every Friday at 9 p.m, where we can truly get into the nitty-gritty of what's going on. GB News, Britain's news channel.
Every Saturday, 10 till 12, we'll bring you all of the news that you need to know. We'll also remind you that there is so much to smile about.
It's my favourite time of the week. I get to relax, enjoy some light-hearted stories, and let Ellie teach me about fashion too.
That's Saturday Morning Live, every Saturday, 10 till 12.
Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, and as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/your say. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
It's 11:39. This is Britain's Newsroom with me, Bev Turner, and Andrew Pearce.
Now, we love this story. This is the London street sweeper whose stony-hearted bosses prevented him from accepting £3,000 raised by his local community. They wanted to send him on a holiday trip of a lifetime. Charlie Peters has the full story.
Hard-earned holiday for a hard-grafting street sweeper. Paul Spires is a much-loved part of this South London community. He's spent years keeping the streets spotless while bringing joy to the community while playing Elvis from his portable speaker.
When I first got here, it was so quiet, and after 3 months, I decided to buy myself a speaker. I started playing music. Everyone loved it. Everyone loved the music.
So when 200 residents from Beckenham chipped in more than £3,000 to send a sweeper on a summer break to Portugal, it was a moment of great local spirit.
I'm overwhelmed with it. I'm just here to do a job. to the best of my ability, and the way they've reacted is brilliant.
Lisa Knight, an estate agent, said she started the campaign after becoming friends with Mr. Spears.
Last Monday, I bumped into him after work. It was a 30-degree day and he'd been working all day. So we stood and had a chat like we often do. And he explained to me that it was his birthday on Tuesday and he wanted to save up to go to Portugal because he's only ever been abroad once for his 60th birthday. And after he left, I decided to make the GoFundMe. I checked with him that he was happy for me to do so before going live. He said yes. So we shared it on the local Beckenham Appreciation Group on Facebook, which is huge and is a real local community standpoint for us, and it just flew away. So many people got in touch, so many people donated.
But Mr. Spears was unable to take the trip due to his employer's rules on accepting gifts. Veolia blamed his contract with Bromley Council, but they said that it was a matter for the waste management firm. Amid all of this bureaucratic bickering, a solution appeared when a travel company spotted an opportunity to help out.
onthebeach.com had an amazing idea to run a competition whereby Paul would be the winner. He had to be aged between the age of 62 and 64, be loved in Beckenham, have the surname Spears and love Elvis. He completes with all of those, and so he's won the holiday and he still gets to go on holiday.
Tough competition for him to win.
Yeah, he was really blown away. He said yesterday he forgot that he'd entered it.
I entered the competition and I forgot all about it, but then all of a sudden I said I won, got a £3,000 voucher which they're going to send me when I can go on holiday, and hopefully I'll be flying out Saturday.
Paul told GB News he was delighted that he could take the holiday and is now set to take his brother David to Albufeira in Portugal. And Veolia has now stepped in and given Paul some extra paid leave to take his holiday.
They did say if I wanted to go 2 weeks, they'd pay me for the 2 weeks, but I'm going to try and split it, so I'll take a week now and maybe a week later on.
The company has also said it will match the £3,000 from Lisa's fundraiser to spend on charity.
Veolia have matched that £3,000 to donated to who I have wanted nominated, and obviously cancer research, which they've already done, and they said it'd take about 2 or 3 days to sort out.
Everyone likes to hear something nice, and it was a nice thing to do, which is the whole reason we set it up.
Common sense and community spirit have prevailed. Charlie Peters, GB News, Beckenham.
That is my favourite story of the year so far.
It's just common sense has come out, and what a decent bloke, great guy, local community rallying around, and Veolia saw the light in the end because it was a PR disaster.
The thing is, you shouldn't have to bend the rules in that way. They should have just been decent from the start and let him have his holiday.
But how clever that the competition, you had to be an Elvis fan, you had to be a certain age, you had to have the same surname as Paul.
Love it.
And of course, so he's going to Portugal. And only a second trip abroad. We sort of, so many of us take it for granted, don't we, that you just go abroad. It's only a second
time.
trip.
Let us know how you get on, won't you?
Yeah.
Right, still to come. If you use those QR codes to pay for your parking, you don't do that, do you? You need to stay with us for some priceless advice. You don't want to miss this. This is Britain's Newsroom on GB News.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Your lunchtime update on the stories that matter across the UK.
From breaking news and insightful analysis, inspiring stories and lively debates.
You're comparing yourself to a former Prime Minister.
Which is it? Stay informed, stay updated, stay entertained.
I just don't know how anyone would not want to be there.
Every weekday from midday.
We are Good Afternoon Britain, only on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
Prince Harry also revealed that he wouldn't bring his wife Meghan Markle back to the UK over safety concerns.
Let's talk to royal correspondent Michael Cole.
Good morning, Stephen. Good morning, Ellie. I mean, they live in California. I'm not sure what the murder rate is there, but that's a more dangerous place than Britain's at any time of the day. And of course, he compromised his own safety when he said in his book Spare, his autobiography, which was Ghost Britain, that he'd personally killed 25 Taliban when he was serving with the British Army in Afghanistan. Well, that painted a target for life on the back of himself and his family, which was a very unwise thing for him to do. The other thing which struck me, it was that he invoked the name of the late Queen, saying that he'd had several conversations with his grandmother, and she'd been very, very supportive in his battle. He sees himself, and it's a word he's used, as a dragon slayer against the popular press, the tabloid press, and he's continuing with that. Of course, his brother, Prince William, has settled, but also in the programme was Hugh Grant. Now, Hugh Grant also has settled, as indeed did I, when I received an apology from News Group. I believe in a free and unfettered press. Newspapers are having a bad time at the moment, losing circulation, losing advertising. Young people don't read newspapers. And so I felt that the right thing to do was to settle. I didn't want to take punitive action against newspapers.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Dubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the argument. We get rid of the disrespect. And then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together, and what have we got? In my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Right, drivers are being urged to avoid scanning QR codes to pay for parking after a spate of scams.
The codes are meant to make life simple and easy for us all, apparently.
Well, joining us now from sunny Bordeaux is motoring journalist Quentin Wilson. Quentin, thank you so much for giving up some time on what might be, I suppose, your holiday, maybe, if you're in Bordeaux. Now, just explain to our viewers what we're talking about here with the QR codes. Because this isn't just using the app, is it? It's something specific.
No. So what fraudsters are doing is they're putting stick-on QR codes on parking machines, and we saw this on electric car chargers in London last year and flagged it up. But it's now spread to car parks, and it's quite prevalent in America and in Canada. So what they do is they put the sticker on, you then think you're paying for your parking using this handy and labour-less QR code. But in fact, your data then goes straight to the fraudulent website. They capture it, and then they try to empty your bank account. And the irony is you don't pay for the parking. So you could not only have your bank account emptied, but you could have the bailiffs appearing because you haven't paid for parking and don't realise you've done that. So my advice is, understand that very few councils do use QR codes. They use either cash, cards, or apps. So pay for parking only with cash, cards, or things like Ringo or Just Park, because they're much, much better, and never, ever pay for parking using a QR code.
Do you think we've sort of sleptwalked into this way of paying for our parking, Quentin, without enough kind of debate about the pros and cons of it? I mean, I'm particularly thinking about my parents when they go to park their car. My dad doesn't have a smartphone, and he can just be baffled by the fact that he can't put £1 in the machine. And it's just all happened without a huge amount of scrutiny.
Well, it's the parking industry, the billion-pound parking industry, who have made it easier for them and not for us by making it, supposedly better to use a smartphone. And as you say, with senior citizens not having smartphones and not able sometimes to pay with cash at all, it does make it difficult. But I think, if you have access to a smartphone, then absolutely download these apps. But it's the way, collecting cash and emptying machines is labour intensive. It costs them time and money. So they're obviously trying to streamline it as quickly as possible. But I think that the British Parking Association needs to make it clear to everybody that if they have been scammed like this and not paid for parking, they're not to chase people because, they didn't realise that this was a scam QR code. It's not great. And who knew that fraud would come to the car park?
It's extraordinary, isn't it? Nowhere is safe from it, Quentin. Fraud is now the biggest crime in Britain.
It's really depressing, and you hear this lovely heartwarming story about that street cleaner, and it kind of breaks your heart that on the one side there are these lovely people, and on the other side there are these malicious, fraudulent, devious people who want to do nothing but create chaos.
I know you're not here to talk about this, but I would really love to hear your opinion on this. We've seen Freddie Flintoff, former Top Gear presenter, talking about the awful accident that he had when he sustained significant facial injuries and also and also psychological troubles that he continues to have from that. Do you think the days of those car shows pushing the limits are probably over now, Quentin?
Yeah, I think, look, we've had quite a few celebrated car crashes on car shows, and mercifully we haven't had any fatalities, but it's a very dangerous game. And when I did Top Gear, you know, we didn't have the levels of health and safety that they do now. And you know, you took things to the limit to create those golden television moments. So I think that world is now gone, and we won't see those shows that really challenge things, because it's basically unsafe. And you can put all the health and safety stuff in and have all the people watching it. But if you're taking cars to the limit and you're driving at extreme speeds and doing extreme cornering, things do go wrong. It's as simple as that. So that was then, and sadly, this is now. Yeah,
it is a different time, isn't it? Although, ironically, Freddie Flintoff was travelling in a car that was going quite slowly, I think about 20 miles an hour.
What car are you driving at the moment, Quentin?
Well, look, you know me. I drive an electric car, a Tesla. And I've driven it here to Bordeaux, and no problems at all. I've managed to charge all the time. I go to the supermarket here in France. There's a huge 350 kilowatt charger. Go shopping, plug it in, come out. It's done.
Have they got? Is it because are there many more chargers there, Quentin, than there are in the UK? Charging points.
Then not many more, but they've just got bigger, higher powered chargers here. And the French are really behind this, and they've got all the wind turbines as well, and the nuclear energy. So we need to sort our grid out. We need to say, look, this is a long-term future. We can have cars that don't pollute.
And how many times did you have to stop on your journey to charge up?
Well, I took the dogs with me, so it was three times. So I charged once when I left the UK, once when I got to Caen, and then twice on the way to Bordeaux. And you stop and you have a beef bourguignon in the lovely service station. I mean, it's not an inconvenience, trust me.
France. It's not a beef burger in France. It's beef bourguignon. Very good. Yeah. Quentin, lovely to talk to you. That's
great
the motoring business. Quentin wasn't. And very important advice. If it is a QR code on the parking thing, ignore it. Yeah. Don't do it.
If it's on the GB News website, of course, or on our screen, that's safe. Don't be frightened of all QR codes. But on the parking machines, they aren't reliable.
I don't think I've ever access to QR code, ever.
That does not surprise me. Right. What day is it?
Thursday.
OK, we won't be back tomorrow. Thank you for that. We'll be back on Monday, though. But up next, you're in the very safe and capable hands of Tom and Emily.
Well, soft touch Britain. Why on earth are criminals with up to 100 convictions being spared jail?
And 15% bumper pay rises for train drivers. Yes, the government has paid into these bumper demands from the unions. The question is, might this solve the strikes? But at what cost? We'll be into that and so much more on Good Afternoon Britain after your weather forecast.
Looks like things are heating up. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Morning, welcome to your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News. Something of a north-south split today, lots of cloud across the north, outbreaks of rain this morning, whereas much of the south staying dry until tonight. In fact, a much brighter day on the south coast compared to yesterday, but it's dull and out for much of Scotland and Northern Ireland this morning. That rain is trickling into northwest England and North Wales and will continue to spread southwards towards the Midlands by the end of the afternoon. At the same time, it does start to clear from the far northwest. Yes, we'll see increasing cloud further south, but we should see some decent spells of sunshine, 25, 26 degrees. In this rainier zone, though, it's also going to be quite windy, particularly for North Wales, northwest England, southwest Scotland. By the time we get to this evening's rush hour, the rain should be pulling away from most of Scotland. Some sunny spells over the Highlands, but still 1 or 2 showers. Could still be quite grey on the east coast at this stage and potentially through the central belt, although the rain will be heading away by 5 or 6 o'clock. Should be clearing from Northern Ireland by then as well, so for many here a fine evening. Still quite blustery over Wales and northwest England with outbreaks of rain, just spreading down towards the southwest, whereas East Anglia in the southeast should stay dry well into the evening. It's not really until later on we start to see that rain spreading across East Anglia and then the southeast of England. 1 or 2 heavy bursts as it clears through. For many it'll turn clearer and cooler, with temperatures down to single figures in rural parts of Scotland and Northern Ireland. Still quite warm and humid across East Anglia and the southeast. Any early rain should scoot away tomorrow morning, but there is the potential the warmth and humidity may linger across the southeast, which could give some afternoon showers. Certainly looking at some showers across the northwest of Scotland. For many, tomorrow's a decent looking day, dry and bright. A fresher feel as well, and temperatures close to the average for the time of year, generally high teens across the north, low to mid-20s further south.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Celebrate a spectacular summer with your chance to win an incredible £30,000 in tax-free cash in our Great British Giveaway. It's the biggest prize of the year